Chapter 56. Yi Huanyan suddenly frowned when she heard the words Jiang Milan. In terms of seniority, Ling Han had to call Jiang Milan Aunt Jiang. And, at this moment, putting aside the fact that he was being impolite, his question was also somewhat hard to fathom. Was his focus on the matter of Jiang Milan's death or her feelings? Perhaps it was because she was used to reading and understanding Ling Han's every move and every word that he said. His rather straightforward sentence, now, was full of danger in her eyes. Ling Han slowed down the car and turned to look at her. His expression was calm, as if he was just asking casually. "It feels like the sky is falling down on my shoulders," she answered honestly. When Jiang Milan was alive, she didn't have a good relationship with Ling Han, but she still had a good relationship with him. Usually, when he didn't eat at home, she would ask Yi Huanyan to pack food and send it to his place. During the holidays, she would also take the initiative to call him home for dinner. Yi Huanyan selfishly felt that Ling Han didn't have any hatred for her mother. After all, her mother wasn't a mistress. Ling Doming's original wife had died half a year ago before Jiang Milan moved into the Ling family. It was difficult to be a stepmother. In her eyes, Jiang Milan had already done her best. Being able to make Ling Han properly call her Aunt Jiang was already an incredible matter. When Ling Dongming and Jiang Milan were in a car accident, the first person to receive the call was Ling Han. Yi Huanyan was in the company at that time, organizing documents in Ling Dongming's office. Ling Han called her and told her to take a taxi to the hospital and not to panic. It was that sentence that made her feel that the sky wouldn't fall. She didn't say this to Ling Han. At this moment, Ling Han's eyes were a little cold, as if he wasn't interested in her words. He asked indifferently, "What kind of person do you think your mother is?" "My mother?" Yi Huanyan hesitated for a moment. "My mom is a pretty good person. She might be a little vain, but she always bought branded bags for herself. She's a workaholic, and she's very passionate. She's good at dancing. I remember that Uncle Ling liked to play some music with my mom at home and dance with her. I bumped into them a few times, and it was quite awkward. I used to think that Ling Dongming was a pretty good person. He had brains, talent, and ambition. He managed pleasure company very well. When it was sent to me, it didn't take much effort. Some of the other branches and some of the rented shops were also very reliable. There have never been any legal disputes." It was rare for Ling Han to speak so earnestly, which made Yi Huanyan a little uncomfortable. She followed his words and said, "Uncle Ling is indeed a very good person. He took me and my mother in and treated us very well. What you see in front of you is not necessarily the truth." Ling Han suddenly glanced at her. "My father isn't a good person, so you shouldn't think that your mother is so good." These words made Yi Huanyan frown. Did he have something against Jiang Milan? Or was it against Ling Dongming? She couldn't bear to destroy the rare harmonious atmosphere between her and Ling Han, so she held back her rebuttal and pursed her lips. Everyone has two sides. No one is absolutely perfect in this world. Ling Han frowned and gripped the steering wheel tightly, not saying anything. After arriving at the company, Ling Han sat in his office and opened the drawer, revealing the photo on top of a stack of documents. The innocent girl had a ponytail and was wearing a school uniform. There was a crack in the middle that was glued shut, but it wasn't perfect and couldn't be restored to its original appearance. The crack stretched from the top of the girl's head to her waist. It made people feel uncomfortable after looking at it for a long time. Xiao Mu came in with a large stack of documents with a very serious expression. "President Ling, you asked me to investigate the driver who caused the accident. I did. That driver gambled and owed 50 to 60,000 yuan to a black gambling den. He also got addicted to alcohol and hit his wife after drinking at home. Last year, his wife left with a rich man. Oh right, this driver has a lot of records of drunken driving and injuring people. But his ex-wife secretly found someone to settle it for him. It's quite strange." Ling Han nodded. "So what happened back then was an accident, right?" At the mention of this, Xiao Mu frowned. "I was about to talk about this. I investigated this man's neighbors, and they all said that he was a man who didn't drink at all 10 years ago. He was just an ordinary truck driver, but his income was not stable. His child had congenital heart disease, so he had been saving money for a heart bypass surgery for his child. 10 years ago, this driver injured someone while drunk and was detained for a period of time. After he was released, he operated on his child, but the child was unlucky. The operation failed, and he died on the operating table. Later, this man became addicted to alcohol. A strange expression appeared on Ling Han's face. You said that this driver operated on his child after he was released from a detention center? Where did he get the money? We haven't found anything yet. The man lives in an old alley. The neighbors around him are all older. Some of them don't have good memories, and some have moved away. That's all we found. We came back to report to you immediately. Continue to investigate. Find out who paid for the operation. Ling Han's face darkened bit by bit. He had a premonition that the results of the investigation would once again turn his life upside down. 11 years ago, when Qingwan was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Her already weak body could not get out of bed for a long time, and she was unwilling to see people. For some reason, there was a period of time when she suddenly felt much better. The doctor said that this was the final radiance of the setting sun, and he told her family to be prepared. Ling Han had not told Ling Dongming about his mother's cancer yet, so Ling Dongming rarely went home and worked overtime in the company every day. During that period of time, when Qingwan suddenly seemed to become a different person. Every day, she would carry a thermos to deliver lunch and dinner to him. It was also on that day when she was delivering dinner that she was hit by a small truck. Originally, she did not have many days left, but in that instant, she passed away. At Wen Qingwan's funeral, Ling Dongming cried very sadly. Everyone who came was very affected, including Ling Han. He felt that although his father did not seem to care much about his mother all these years, he probably still had very deep feelings for her in his heart. Growing up, this was the first time he had seen his imposing and dignified father cry like that. He could not bear to see it, so he decided to put away his previous thoughts of making him blame himself a little. In the end, he still told him about the cancer. My mother's stomach cancer was in the terminal stage. It was found out half a year ago, but I never told you. Although this car accident was an accident, the doctor also said that she won't make it through this month, so don't blame yourself too much. After a brief moment of surprise, Ling Dongming cried even more heartbroken. After the funeral, he locked himself in his bedroom alone and did not leave the room for half a month. At that time, Ling Han thought that his mother's lifetime of longing for him was not in vain. Unfortunately, his mother did not see it. Chapter 57. In the afternoon, when Yi Huanyan delivered the documents to Ling Han, she noticed that he didn't seem to be in a good mood. He didn't touch the cold cup of coffee by his hand, and the contract in his hand was flipped to the same page as when she came an hour ago. Ling Han never did useless work. He always checked everything very carefully the first time. He didn't need to look at the documents a second time, so there were only two possibilities for him to flip to this page. Either there was a problem with this page, or he wasn't looking at the contract at all. Yi Huanyan turned her head to take a look. The first page was the cultural background of both parties. The problem couldn't be here, right? Putting down the document in her hand, Yi Huanyan carefully asked, President Ling, is there a problem with this page of the contract? Live and learn, and ask if there's anything you don't understand. This was what Jiang Milan taught her when she was still around. As a woman, and a beautiful woman at that, the biggest advantage was that even if the question you asked was a little stupid, the other party could still calmly tell you the answer. Ling Han's gaze shifted from the company's cultural background to Yi Huanyan's small face with light makeup. She bent over slightly, and her gaze fell on his desk. When she bent over, it revealed a pair of small collarbones under her fair neck. Below the collarbones, there was a faint black mole between her breasts, which seemed to emit a fatal attraction. This woman didn't seem to know what kind of charm she had. Some of the characteristics that she often inadvertently revealed had a different kind of sex appeal. Ling Han's overseas classmate and friend had seen Yi Huanyan on a video call by chance and had called her a sexy stunner. At that time, Yi Huanyan had just entered university. She had rashly barged into his room in a dress from the tennis club to ask him to teach her how to play tennis. Kevin had seen it all in the video call. After that, this adventurer, who couldn't be contacted 360 days out of 365 days, had pestered him for a whole month, asking for a chance to talk to Yi Huanyan alone. No, why do you ask? Ling Han looked at her, feeling a little restless. His rare good temper made Yi Huanyan a little surprised. After a trace of astonishment flashed across her face, she answered honestly, "Because you have been reading this page for more than an hour, so I want to ask if there is anything wrong with it, so that I can quickly ask the people in the business department to change it." Ling Han was slightly stunned. Yi Huanyan's merciless reminder pulled back all his thoughts. He coughed dryly and picked up the coffee beside him. "No problem. I'm waiting for the video conference." Yi Huanyan looked at him in surprise as he brought the cup of coffee to his mouth. Her eyes widened. What else? A trace of bitterness slid down his throat. Ling Han didn't realize anything was wrong. He only looked at Yi Huanyan's astonished expression and felt a little puzzled. "The coffee is cold. Do you want me to get you a new one?" Yi Huanyan pointed at the cup in his hand carefully. Only then did Ling Han feel a chill in his throat. The office was a little quiet. He pursed his lips, and the awkwardness in his eyes disappeared. He still maintained a calm look. "Cold coffee tastes better. There's no need to change it. You can go out." Yi Huanyan was slightly taken aback. She nodded skeptically and walked out of the office. Ji Xiaoya was looking at the computer in the secretary's office, working hard to change the data. When she saw her come back, she was so busy that she didn't even have time to look up. "Make me a cup of coffee, quickly. My eyelids are sticking together. What kind of data is the finance department doing? How can I even look at the layout? My eyes are going blind." Yi Huanyan laughed. "Isn't it because you don't work hard usually? You're not familiar with such simple data processing and conversion. What would you do if you changed jobs?" When she heard this, Ji Xiaoya was slightly taken aback. She suddenly looked up at Yi Huanyan seriously. "You're right. I can't just rely on you to support me. I'm starting to learn these things today. I must learn them well and then change jobs." "What do you mean by relying on me to support you? You're supporting yourself now, okay? It's not like you just graduated from university." Yi Huanyan couldn't help but correct her. "I'm relying on you to begin with." Ji Xiaoya mumbled softly, but she didn't dare let Yi Huanyan hear her. Yi Huanyan took the cup on Ji Xiaoya's table and went straight to the pantry. When she stood in the pantry and saw that half of the cold coffee was left in Ji Xiaoya's cup, she suddenly remembered what Ling Han said earlier. "Does cold coffee taste better?" There was no one around. She leaned close to the cup and secretly took a sip. She covered her mouth and forced herself to swallow. So bitter, what kind of strange illness did Ling Han have? At this time, the laptop screen on the desk of the president's office shook twice and flashed a handsome man's face. He had chestnut curly hair, deep eyes, and very three-dimensional facial features. He was obviously of mixed blood. He was waving enthusiastically at Ling Han and flying a few kisses. He couldn't wait to jump out of the screen. "Hey Leon, long time no see." Ling Han was already used to his enthusiasm and rolled his eyes in disgust. "Kevin, be normal. No wonder you can only flirt with men and not women. You're bringing up my sad matter again." Kevin made an exaggerated sad and wronged look and pursed his lips at Ling Han. "You have so many women around you. You're amazing. You're not like me, who keeps chimpanzees company in the forest every day. You can find a female chimpanzee." Ling Han looked indifferent. The screen shook violently twice. Kevin is going crazy on the other side of the camera. "Leon, you're a cold man with no sympathy. Why did a sexy little stunner come to your side? I can't accept it." It had been many years since Rui was bombarded by Kevin. This was the first time Kevin mentioned Yi Huanyan. Originally, Ling Han thought that he had forgotten Yi Huanyan's existence. He didn't expect him to bring up the past again. He inadvertently showed a trace of surprise. You still remember her? On the other side of the screen was the proud face of the mixed-blood man. His chin was almost touching the camera. What's wrong? Can't I think about her even if I can't get her? Half a month ago, I went back home and saw the news about you. You have so many women around you. I regret letting you have those sexy little beauties. Give? Ling Han was dumbfounded. Back then, this man had begged, threatened, and enticed him for a month. He didn't even get Yi Huanyan's contact information, let alone formally meet her. His imagination was really rich. Kevin, she doesn't know you at all. You have to have a limit to your narcissism. Otherwise, it's really easy for you to be single for the rest of your life. Ling Han kindly reminded him. Kevin smiled meaningfully at the other end of the screen. Don't you have a saying that if fate brings us together, we'll meet even if we're thousands of miles apart? If you tell me now that you don't like sexy little stunners, I'll pack up my tent, say goodbye to the gorilla I just met, and then return to the city to buy the fastest ticket to meet her. Ling Han's brows unconsciously furrowed as he asked in a deep voice, Kevin, are you serious? Chapter 58. There was still a smile on Kevin's face, but this smile was more playful than the various exaggerated jokes just now. Ling Han, who had always been calm and collected, was slightly stunned when he noticed the strangeness in his expression. A trace of impatience appeared in his eyes. Kevin, this is boring. I've never seen you care so much about a woman. At the other end of the screen was Kevin's big white teeth, and there was a rare seriousness in his smile. He didn't even look at our arrogant peacock princess in school, let alone ask me if I'm serious about any woman. Leon, you're serious this time. A strange look flashed across Ling Han's face, and he avoided Kevin's gaze. It's just a woman. There are so many women in the world, and no one has to be anyone. So you mean I can pursue her? No. These two words were blurted out by Ling Han without even thinking about it. He reflexively glared at the man at the other end of the screen. Oh, okay. Kevin shrugged and shook the screen twice. I knew you had this attitude. Otherwise, I would have pestered you for a whole month, but you wouldn't let me see her alone. When I realized that you were overly protective of your sister, I knew that you didn't see her as a sister at all. Ling Han frowned, as if he wanted to refute something. Leon, don't lie to yourself and others. You can only understand this kind of thing after you've lost someone. Kevin, okay, I'm going on a date with my gorilla princess. Let's stop here for now. I see that you're in a good mood recently. I hope that next time you can introduce her to me personally as your girlfriend. Kevin grinned and smiled dazzlingly. Remember, it's not that I failed in my pursuit. I gave it to you because you're my good brother. If you hadn't fallen in love with her long ago, I definitely wouldn't have let go of such a good opportunity. Next time, if there's no progress, I'll take the initiative to attack. Don't regret it then. Although he knew that Kevin was joking, Ling Han's heart still inexplicably tightened. The video interface on the computer flashed twice and returned to the blue interface of the main screen. Ling Han frowned for no reason. He looked up at the door of the president's office, as if he could see the busy figure in the secretary's office through the door. In the afternoon, there was still half an hour before it was time to get off work. Ji Xiaoye had just returned from the planning department with a bunch of food and drinks. It was obvious that she had heard a lot of good words. Here, these are for you. Ji Xiaoye piled most of the things in her hands on Yi Huanyan's desk and giggled. Come with me to the planning department after work. Yi Huanyan was busy checking the data and didn't even look up. Did Manager Wu from the planning department ask you out for a meal again? What do you mean by asking me out for a meal? I'm asking the secretary to come with me. You go ahead. I still have things to do after work. What things? What big things can you have? You still have to eat, right? Ji Xiaoye grabbed her wrist and refused to let go. Yi Huanyan couldn't focus on her work and had to look up at her. Stop fooling around. I have to finish this work quickly so that I can leave without working overtime today. I have to buy a new phone. The last time she dropped her phone at the entrance of the company, she didn't have time to buy a new one. She was still using an old one. It wasn't very comfortable in her hands, and she missed several calls from clients. It's just a new phone. Can't you buy it anytime? Come with me for a meal first, okay? I'll go with you to buy a new phone after dinner. Yi Huanyan frowned. I don't drink. Who said anything about drinking? Seeing that Yi Huanyan had relented, Ji Xiaoya immediately showed a happy expression. I don't want you to drink. If someone asks you to drink, I'll drink all of them. Okay? I have to go home before 10 p.m. Okay. No problem. Ji Xiaoya looked as if everything was negotiable. However, based on her past behavior, Yi Huanyan had a headache. She always agreed well at the beginning, but when it came to real situations, she couldn't control herself. Before leaving work, Yi Huanyan knocked on the door of the CEO's office. Come in. Ling Han's tone had a hint of authority. Yi Huanyan closed the door and stood a little far away from Ling Han's seat. The planning department is having a dinner gathering. I might be going back a little later tonight. She didn't want to repeat the same mistake. It was better to inform Ling Han about this kind of evening gathering in advance to prevent the same thing from happening again. Ling Han seemed to be thinking about something. When he saw her come in, he looked absent-minded. When he heard what she said, he seemed to be stunned for a moment and frowned. What does the planning department's dinner gathering have to do with you? Manager Xiao Wu from the planning department has a good relationship with Xiao Yu. Their department has always cooperated well with the secretary's office, so it was their manager's idea to invite us to the dinner gathering. When the department managers decided to have a private gathering, they didn't need to ask Ling Han for permission. Moreover, this seemed to be a private gathering of the planning department, and it was going to be held after work. All the more, they didn't need to ask Ling Han for permission. When he heard Ji Xiaoya's name, Ling Han's expression relaxed slightly. He said indifferently, "This is your own matter. You don't need to ask me for permission." Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. Her face showed some disbelief. Ling Han had always been domineering and liked to interfere in everything. When she heard him say that it had nothing to do with her, she felt like she was in a dream. Thinking about how he had been so polite and distant to her these days, she felt a little disappointed. When she came out of the CEO's office, Yi Huanyan looked like she had lost her soul. Ji Xiaoya had already packed her bag. She carried Yi Huanyan's bag and locked the door of the secretary's office. She carefully leaned in close to her ear and whispered, "Did you agree?" Yi Huanyan was stunned for a few seconds before nodding. He said that it had nothing to do with him, so it couldn't be considered as agreeing or not agreeing. It could only be said that he didn't care. Ji Xiaoya didn't know what was going on inside. She thought that Yi Huanyan's sullen expression was because she had been mocked by Ling Han again. She couldn't help but feel a little angry. What the hell is he? He doesn't even have his freedom anymore. Let's just ignore him. Yan. Yi Huanyan was stunned for a moment. She looked at Ji Xiaoya and forced a smile. She pretended to be relaxed and said, "Let's not talk about this anymore. Let's go. We have to leave early. Otherwise, we won't be able to squeeze into the subway during rush hour." When she said this, Ji Xiaoya revealed a meaningful expression. "Squeeze into the subway? Don't joke around. The planning department is treating us to a meal. There are 4 departments in the planning department and 8 managers. Which one of them doesn't have an annual salary of a few million? If they don't even have a car, how are they going to treat the ladies to a meal?" Ladies. Yi Huanyan's expression tensed up. There are other departments? Isn't this a gathering for the planning department? Ji Xiaoya chuckled. Yes, the planning department planned this. It's for the welfare of the golden bachelors in the company's planning department. We're the guests of honor. Chapter 59. What golden bachelor? Yi Huanyan vaguely sensed that something was wrong. She stared blankly at Ji Xiaoya, who was half a head shorter than her. Ji Xiaoya felt a little guilty under her gaze. She swallowed hard and said, "Well, actually, it's not a bad idea to get a free meal. I'm single, and you are considered single. What am I?" Yi Huanyan suddenly realized that this was not a department gathering. Her expression changed. "I'm not going, don't." Ji Xiaoye grabbed Yi Huanyan's wrist and stopped her from leaving. At this moment, a black BMW drove out of a company's garage. Through the car window, they could see Manager Wu from the planning department smiling politely. The car slowly stopped in front of them. Yi Huanyan did not want to argue with Ji Xiaoye in front of others, so she immediately stopped what she was doing. The window of the black BMW rolled down slowly. Manager Wu sat in the driver's seat and smiled at Yi Huanyan. "You must have waited for a long time. Secretary Yi, Secretary Ji." Yi Huanyan was about to say that she did not want to go, but Ji Xiaoye beat her to it. No, we didn't wait for long. Let's go." As she spoke, she opened the back door and stuffed Yi Huanyan in. She sat in the back as well and gave Yi Huanyan a look with a bitter expression. Yi Huanyan was helpless. She could not disrespect Ji Xiaoye in front of others, so she could only sit there gloomily and lower her head to question Ji Xiaoye on her phone. "What kind of party is it today? Tell me clearly." Ji Xiaoye was busy chatting with Manager Wu when her phone suddenly rang. She met Yi Huanyan's covetous gaze and instantly understood. She lowered her head to look at her phone. "It's just a normal party. The planning department is really treating us to a meal. It's not just you and me. There are other girls in the company, and a few new interns from their department are also present. They're all single?" Ji Xiaoye pursed her lips and raised her head to look at Yi Huanyan, as if she didn't need to say anything. Yi Huanyan frowned and turned her head to look out the other side of the window. She could not be bothered to talk nonsense with her. Ji Xiaoye was too bold. Ji Xiaoye. If Ling Han found out that she came out for a blind date party, and that it was a blind date party under his company's nose, she would be in trouble. She was too reckless. "Secretary Yi, are you not feeling well? You don't look too good," Manager Wu, who was driving, asked cautiously. Yi Huanyan was in a daze. When she heard the words Secretary Yi, she was slightly stunned. She glanced at Ji Xiaoye, who was trembling in fear and did not dare to speak, and said calmly, "It's nothing. I just haven't attended a department party in a long time. I heard that there are interns, and I thought that since the young children are playing together, they might not be able to relax when they see me." After all, she worked for Ling Han. If there was anything going on below, those people were afraid that she would tell Ling Han. Even if she did not do so, the people in the company treated her as one of Ling Han's eyes. In response, Manager Xiao Wu smiled. "Secretary Yi, I'm afraid you don't want to eat with those insensible children. If you don't want to, how about this? I'll make a call and book another private room with fewer people. It'll be fine with just a few of us eating." Upon hearing this, Yi Huanyan's expression turned even uglier. She did not know if Manager Wu had really misunderstood her or if there was something else, but she felt that there was a hint of discomfort in his words. Ji Xiaoye knew Yi Huanyan's temper the best. She did not like this kind of situation to begin with. Now that Manager Wu wanted to talk to her about it with fewer people, she had to avoid it even more. When the time came, she would just grab her bag and leave. It would be terrible if she was embarrassed. No need. Yen was just joking. "We haven't met the new interns yet. It's a good opportunity to meet them. We'll be working together in the future, so it's more convenient this way." "That's true." Manager Wu pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose. Yi Huanyan rarely communicated with the people in the company in private. She was overly strict when it came to work, so most of the people under her were a little afraid of her. This was something that everyone knew. Ji Xiaoye had always been active. She was familiar with all the managers of the various departments and the salespeople under them. Many people asked her for help. As long as it was not too overboard and did not harm the interests of the company, she would help most of the time. If she could not help, she would look for Yi Huanyan and act coquettishly, and she would help. This manager who had not been fawning over her for a day or two. He was the vice president of the second planning department. He could be considered as a parachutist in the company. He was poached from another media company by the headhunting company. He was quite capable and became a vice president at a young age. The recent few planning projects were the most outstanding ones in the second department, and many of them were his ideas. Ji Xiaoye looked at him in a new light. Yi Huanyan originally planned to say that she had something to do and leave early when she arrived. However, when she saw Ji Xiaoye chatting enthusiastically with someone, she could not help but worry. This girl had never been in a serious relationship before. She was afraid that she would be deceived if she did not handle it well. This manager Wu looked honest, but he always gave Yi Huanyan the feeling that he was a veteran in the field of love. She was not sure if her intuition was wrong, but she could not tell how much affection this manager Wu had for Ji Xiaoye in his eyes. Pleasure Group. The company's employees got off work one after another. Qiao Mu handed over the last job she had. She looked at the time and knocked on the door to enter the president's office. President Ling, do you want to order dinner and have it delivered to the company, or do you have other arrangements? Ling Han did not arrange anything else today. He was supposed to get off work early, but Qiao Mu could not tell what the boss was thinking. He only reminded her that it was time to eat when it was time, which was his fault. Ling Han raised his wrist to look at the time. It was 7:30 p.m. No, it's not early. You can get off work first. Qiao Mu nodded and turned to leave. Planning department is having a gathering today. A seemingly casual question suddenly sounded behind her. However, this question appeared at this time. No matter how casual the tone was, it was still a bit abrupt. Qiao Mu rolled her eyes and did not expose him. Yes, the vice presidents of Planning Department 2nd and 3rd Department said that they are having a gathering to welcome their new interns. He was also invited, but his off-work time was never fixed. As long as the boss needed him, he had to stay in the company, so he did not go. Vice presidents? The Planning Department seems to value this batch of interns quite a bit. Ling Han's tone was calm. Qiao Mu chuckled and said meaningfully, they say that they are welcoming them. But it's actually those old bachelors in the planning department. There are quite a few young girls in this batch of interns, and there are also quite a few pretty ones. They want to take advantage of the fact that the workload has not forced these young girls away. I heard that they even invited some female employees from other departments of the company. Chapter 60. Ling Han's face suddenly darkened, but his tone was calm. You said that the planning department's dinner party was attended by all the bachelors in their department? 9 out of 10 men in the planning department are single, other than a few directors who are older and married and don't participate in this kind of activity. It seems that almost all of them went. Although some of them are married, they still went to join in the fun. The work in the planning department of pleasure had always been heavy. They had to work overtime 5 days a week. Sometimes, when they were called back on Saturday or Sunday, even if they were overseas, they had to buy a plane ticket and rush back immediately. This kind of work intensity caused a serious imbalance in the ratio of men and women in the department. Even if they recruited female employees every year, only a handful of them could last for more than half a year. Moreover, if they got married and had children later on, they would have to resign. The work intensity was high, and the planning department was favored by the heavens. Juan, you had specially set up a floor for them to work. To put it nicely, it was to be independent and not be disturbed by the outside world. But in reality, it was to be isolated from the world. It was extremely difficult to hook up with girls from other departments. Did President Ding of Century Prime call this afternoon? Qiao Mu was slightly stunned. He did not understand why they suddenly talked about clients when they were talking about the company. However, he had been by Ling Han's side for many years, so his reaction was trained. He hurriedly said, there were 3 calls. One of them was from the assistant to confirm tomorrow's dinner, and the other 2, call him and tell him that I have something to do tomorrow. So dinner will be changed to tonight. Century Prime wanted to invest in the pleasure department, and their President Ding could not wait to call the pleasure department 10 times a day. Ling Han intended to cooperate with them. After all, Century Prime had a lot of money, but he did not show it recently to keep them in suspense. President Ling. This. I'm afraid it's not very appropriate over there. Xiao Mu showed a troubled expression. They had already made an appointment, so they could not change the time like this. Just say that Sheng Anren will be there. Ling Han glanced at Xiao Mu. He had already stood up from the chair and started to put on his coat, not giving him any chance to refute. Hearing Sheng Anren's name, Xiao Mu's face froze. A strange look flashed through his eyes, but he quickly nodded and made the call. President Ding, who was at the peak of the century, was interested in Sheng Anren. This was a well-known fact. Although the matter between Sheng Anren and Ling Han was well known, after all, one was an entertainment star, and the other was a consortium leader. Ling Han had an absolute advantage in this kind of thing. Since he didn't take the initiative to admit Sheng Anren's identity in front of everyone, it was enough to prove that he didn't really care about this woman. Naturally, it was inevitable that people who were as powerful as Ling Han would pursue her. After President Ding probed a few times, he understood that Ling Han was just playing with Sheng Anren. Women couldn't see through him, but as a man, he understood at a glance. In a private room of a high-end Japanese restaurant, Yi Huanyan tugged at Ji Xiaoya, who was already drunk, and signaled her to stop drinking. Come, Secretary Yi, let me toast you. We've been colleagues for so long, but this seems to be the first time I've seen you come out for a meal with us. The person who raised the wine glass was manager Xiao Wu, who was sitting across from Yi Huanyan. It was also because of his frequent toasts that Ji Xiaoya drank like this. I already said that Yan Yan doesn't drink, so I'll drink this for her. As expected, Ji Xiaoya put on a chivalrous appearance and went up to snatch the wine glass. Yi Huanyan hastily stopped her, and the moment she snatched the wine glass, Ji Xiaoya collapsed on the tatami. Manager Xiao Wu pushed up the glasses on his nose and smiled. Ji Xiaoya seems to have drunk too much. Secretary Ji seems to have drunk a little too much. It's better to drink less. I just want to toast Secretary Yi. Nothing will happen. The alcohol content of this wine is low. When he said this, he also gave a look to the female interns beside Yi Huanyan. These girls were not as naive and ignorant as Yi Huanyan thought. They were all eloquent, especially the girl named Xiao Shui, who was sitting next to Yi Huanyan. She raised the wine glass and smiled brightly. If Secretary Yi really can't drink, then I'll drink this wine for Secretary Yi. Yi Huanyan frowned. If the news of a new intern drinking on behalf of her spread to the company, it would probably spread to everyone tonight. They would say that Yi Huanyan bullied the new intern, right? No need. How about this? Xiao Yu drank too much, so I have to send her back early. I'll drink this glass of wine as a gift to everyone. I can't play with you to the end. Yi Huanyan raised the wine glass, and his tone was polite and courteous. Compared to those interns who knew how to do things, and even some who went to the washroom with the vice president opposite them to do something shameful, strict, and inflexible wasn't enough to describe them. Manager Xiao Wu didn't stop him and watched as Yi Huanyan drank the wine. Can I? Yi Huanyan put down the glass and looked at manager Xiao Wu without a change in expression. Her alcohol tolerance wasn't bad, especially after attending many banquets with Ling Han over the years. She had to pretend to be polite with those people as a secretary and drank on behalf of many people. She had drunk enough of those forced drinks, so now she felt nauseous when she saw wine. If it wasn't necessary, she would definitely not drink. Good alcohol tolerance, and you say you can't drink. I think Secretary Yi can drink 1,000 glasses without getting drunk. Yi Huanyan smiled politely and lowered his head to support Ji Xiaoya. The wine has been drunk, so the two of us will be leaving first. Thank you for your hospitality, managers. After 3 rounds of wine, the managers at the banquet found their targets and got up one after another, preparing to leave together with Yi Huanyan. Xiao Li drank too much. I'll send her back. Xiao Shui, you can follow Manager Wu. The person who spoke was Manager Fei from Planning Department 2. He was a man in his 40s with a wife and children, so he came to this kind of banquet. From the beginning, Yi Huanyan couldn't be bothered with him, but luckily he knew how to read the situation and didn't have the guts to provoke Yi Huanyan. So his target was the new intern, Xiaoli. Xiaoli was also a person who knew how to do things. After drinking 2 glasses of wine, she didn't even know who she was anymore. She kept calling him Brother Fei, which gave everyone goosebumps. Other than Manager Wu, the only ones who were sober were Xiao Shui, who had a good alcohol tolerance, and Yi Huanyan. The 3 of them saw Xiao Li and Manager Fei go out twice, and when they came back, their clothes were disheveled and their faces were flushed. They didn't need to think to know what happened. How about this? Secretary G drank a lot too, so I'll send the 3 of you back together. After all, I was the one who brought you here, so I have to be responsible for you. Manager Wu stood up from the tatami and brushed the creases off his white shirt. Even in this mess, he still looked immaculately dressed. Yi Huanyan frowned. No need. Xiao Yu and I will just take a taxi. At this time, the taxis are changing shifts, so you probably won't be able to get a taxi. Secretary Yi, don't worry. 2 of you are sober, so I can't do anything to you, right? There are so many people here. If each of you kick me, I'll have to take sick leave tomorrow. Manager Wu smiled naturally, as if Yi Huanyan was measuring the heart of a gentleman with his own mean measure if she didn't agree. Chapter 61. Yi Huanyan couldn't do it on her own. She had to help Ji Xiaoya while hailing a taxi by the roadside. She had no choice but to let Xiao Shui help her. She didn't want to sit in Manager Xiao Wu's car. It was late at night, and who knew what could happen, especially when she was carrying a drunkard who couldn't move. The designated driver is here. Xiao Shui opened the car door and stuffed Ji Xiaoya into Manager Wu's car. She then waved at Yi Huanyan. Secretary Yi, the designated driver is here. Hurry up and get in. We can't get a taxi at this hour. Yi Huanyan looked back. Ji Xiaoya was stuffed into the car like a pile of mud. She panicked and hurriedly tried to pull Ji Xiaoya out. It's okay. Xiao Yu and I don't live far from each other. If we can't get a taxi, we'll take the subway. Yi Huanyan held the car door. Xiao Shui, do me a favor. Help me pull her out. Hello. Xiao Shui suddenly took out her phone from her bag and answered the call. She looked at Yi Huanyan apologetically. My boyfriend said he's here to pick me up. Secretary Yi, you can go with Manager Xiao Wu. My boyfriend is here. Goodbye, Secretary Yi. Just get in the car. The designated driver is driving. Are you still worried? Manager Wu's hand slid along the car door and touched her elbow. She froze and instinctively flung her arm away. She took 2 steps back and put some distance between them. Manager Wu, it's too late. You're drunk. I have to ensure Xiao Yu's safety, so I have to take her with me. Go with her. Manager Xiao Wu leaned against the car door and looked half drunk. Didn't I ask you to go together? Secretary Yi. You, if you're not going, then I'll go. Secretary Ji is very drunk. I have to send her home safely. He sat in the back seat. The unconscious Ji Xiaoya leaned on his shoulder in a daze. Yi Huanyan panicked. Hey, wait a minute. Manager Wu poked his head out of the car and looked at Yi Huanyan with a faint smile. What happened? I'll sit with Xiao Yu. You sit in front. She reckoned that Manager Wu wouldn't dare to do anything. After all, they were all in the same company. They would still see each other often in the future. At most, he would find an opportunity to send the 2 of them back home to get closer to each other. If not for the fact that Ji Xiaoya was drunk, she would not have bothered with such a person. At the entrance of the Japanese restaurant, a group of people had just finished eating. There were both men and women, and one of the men was very outstanding. He was tall, and his height of 185 meters was particularly obvious in the group of people. The woman standing beside him had exquisite makeup, and the burgundy coat could not hide her proud figure at all. She accompanied a middle-aged man with an oily face, talking and laughing. President Ding, I'm really sorry. In order to cooperate with my time, I suddenly called you out so late. I'll treat you to dinner some other day. You must do me the honor. Her voice was very coquettish, and any man who heard it felt soft all over. President Ding patted the back of her hand. Enrin, I have a few bottles of wine. If you're free tonight, would you like to have a few more drinks with me? Sheng Enrin's expression didn't change. Oh, President Ding, you're so happy today that you forgot. If I didn't have a job tomorrow, why would I suddenly change the time to dinner tonight? Next time, President Ding. Really? Don't lie to me. Of course. Hey, President Ding, your car is here. It's windy outside. Get in the car. After sending President Ding away, Sheng Enrin breathed a long sigh of relief and reached out to hold Ling Han's arm. Han, this is all for you. Otherwise, I wouldn't bother to deal with these old men. You have to compensate them well. As if he didn't hear her, Ling Han took a step down the stairs. Sheng Enrin's arm missed, and she immediately looked embarrassed. It's late. You still have things to do tomorrow. Go back and rest early. Sheng Enrin bit her lip and approached Ling Han unwillingly. Her voice was very soft. Han, it's so late. It's not safe for me to go back alone. Aren't you going to send me home? Ling Han's gaze stopped on a black BMW in the distance, and his eyes gradually turned cold. Qiao Mu, send Enrin back. Qiao Mu, who had been standing on the side without saying anything, was slightly stunned. Yes, Han. Sheng Enrin still wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Qiao Mu. Miss Sheng, this way please. Sitting in Qiao Mu's car, Sheng Enrin's face immediately darkened. Come and go at his beck and call. Your boss is really cold and heartless. Qiao Mu started the car and slowly drove on the road. Her voice was gentle. President Ling has always been like this. Compared to other women, he treats Miss Sheng differently. That's because I can help him keep his clients and business partners. Sheng Enrin knew her place very well. Otherwise, she wouldn't have made a name for herself in the entertainment industry not long after her debut. In the past, it was fine if she played with men, but as she grew older, she had to get married and find a good partner. Without a doubt, Ling Han was the best candidate. Since you know, are you still willing to stay by President Ling's side? Qiao Mu couldn't help but ask. What can I do? A relationship is the most stable when it's mutually beneficial. I have value to him, so he keeps me by his side. I need his protection, so I'm willing to do things for him. What if one day your value doesn't exist? Impossible. Sheng Enrin reflexively retorted. When she saw her exquisite face in the rearview mirror, she was slightly stunned and realized that she had lost her composure. She frowned and said, Assistant Qiao, you talk a bit too much today. Qiao Mu's expression changed slightly, and she was stunned for a few seconds before saying lightly, I'm just concerned about you. Sheng Enrin's expression eased a bit, and a gentle smile appeared on her face. I should thank you. You've indeed helped me a lot. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't know so many of the places he frequents. How about this? I'll give you a big red packet during the new year. No need, I'm willing. Qiao Mu's voice was a bit muffled. Sheng Enrin stared at the back of his head suspiciously for a while, feeling that something was off about him today. Qiao Mu felt the gaze behind her and quickly changed the topic. You haven't answered my question. Huh? Sheng Enrin was slightly taken aback as she recalled what he just asked. After thinking about it seriously, she smiled. That's impossible. I'll make him want to marry me as soon as possible. He doesn't have other women by his side, and even if he does, it's only on a whim. No one has been by his side as long as I have. She was very certain when she spoke, as if she already had a card up her sleeve about her identity as Mrs. Ling. Indeed, ever since Ling Han started working at Pleasure Media, his identity as the Crown Prince had been announced to the world. He had never been short of women by his side, and the frequency of him appearing in the gossip news these past few years was no less than that of the current popular artists. However, those female artists did not last long. The only one who lasted more than half a year was her, Sheng Enrin. She did not notice that Qiao Mu's expression was inexplicably sorrowful at this moment. Chapter 62. Manager Wu's car was parked in front of Ji Xiaoya's house. Yi Huanyan hurriedly helped Ji Xiaoye out of the car. She was so drunk that she looked like a puddle of mud. She had to use all her strength to steady herself. "If you don't mind, I'll do it." Manager Wu got out of the car from the front passenger seat. He was half a head taller than Yi Huanyan. At this moment, he was politely asking for Yi Huanyan's opinion. "No need, I'll send her up. It's too late tonight. I'll stay here, so Manager Wu, you can go back first. I'll help you send Secretary Ji upstairs." "No need, no need. I'll ask the housekeeper on duty to help." "Secretary, you don't have to be so polite." As he spoke, Manager Wu grabbed one of Ji Xiaoye's arms and put it on his shoulder. His other hand was around her waist to support her. "Let go of her." Yi Huanyan saw his restless hand and immediately frowned. Her voice turned cold. "Manager Wu, I said no need." Manager Wu was slightly stunned. His delicate face showed some embarrassment. He put down Ji Xiaoye and let her lean against the car door. He pushed up his glasses with one hand. "Secretary Yi, do you have some misunderstanding about me? I usually have a good relationship with Xiaoyu. I'm not the kind of person who would take advantage of others when they are in trouble. If you want to pursue Xiaoyu, you should pursue her openly. You shouldn't use such underhanded means." "Underhanded means? We're all from the same company. I don't need to spell it out." When he was supporting Ji Xiaoye just now, his hands were constantly taking advantage of her. Ji Xiaoye, this idiot, was completely drunk and didn't feel anything at all. Underhanded means? Manager Wu seemed to have heard a joke. "Secretary Yi, who are you disgusting?" Yi Huanyan's expression changed. She didn't understand what he meant. Who in the company doesn't know about the relationship between Ji Xiaoye and President Ling? Your secretary's office is not a clean place. Why are you pretending to be innocent in front of me? Do you want me to make myself clear? I know about the two of you messing around with Ling Zong. What nonsense are you talking about? Pay attention to your status. I'm spouting nonsense? Others may not know, but do you think I don't know? President Ling arranged for the two of you to be by his side, especially this Ji Xiaoye. I don't see her doing anything every day. Isn't she just a pretty face? She eats, drinks, and sleeps with you. You're always with her, and you're always with her. Slap. A loud slap sounded in the air. Yi Huanyan's hands trembled slightly. She gritted her teeth and looked coldly at the man in front of her, who appeared gentle on the surface. Bastard. Xiaoyu is innocent. What right do you have to insult her like that? You dare to hit me? Manager Wu covered his face and looked at Yi Huanyan in disbelief. I think you're really refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. You said that she's innocent. Do you mean that you're having an affair with the boss? Yi Huanyan staggered back a step. Don't come over. There are security guards in the neighborhood. Manager Wu's footsteps paused when he heard the word security. However, when he thought about how they had been arguing for so long and didn't see anyone come out, he understood and laughed coldly. Is that so? Other than a designated driver who just wants to earn money in peace, and your drunken best friend who doesn't know how to behave herself. Who else is there? A shattering pain came from her wrist. She cried out in surprise and was grabbed by Manager Wu. To be honest, I'm not interested in Ji Xiaoye at all. Today, I just want to have a good relationship with you. However, since you're so snobbish, don't blame me for being impolite. The heavy smell of alcohol on his body made Yi Huanyan feel suffocated. She tried her best to retreat, but was tripped by the incompetent Ji Xiaoye. She stumbled and fell into Manager Wu's arms. Throwing yourself into his arms. Secretary Yi, you're not a decent person either. Let go of her. The cold voice was like the light of the moon, shining in this empty neighborhood. Yi Huanyan's body stiffened. The man who was still holding on to her a second ago was so scared that he couldn't speak coherently. President Ling, why are you here? Manager Wu thought that Ling Han was here to look for Ji Xiaoye. His face was pale, and he quickly flung the person in his arms away. I only saw that Secretary Ji was drunk, so I sent her back. I definitely don't have any improper thoughts about Secretary Ji. Then what were you doing just now. Ling Han's face darkened. His half-smile was like a ghost in the dark night. I had an argument with Secretary Yi. No. We were just messing around. Messing around, is that so? Why do I feel like you're messing around? Secretary Yi, do you think it's fun? Ling Han's gaze fell on Yi Huanyan. She was stunned. She held on to the car, beside her, and staggered to stand up. For a moment, it seemed like her brain couldn't work properly. She muttered, "It's not fun." Ling Han took 2 steps toward them. Oh, Secretary Yi doesn't think it's fun, but Manager Wu thinks it's fun. You had an argument because of this? Manager Wu was slightly relieved when he saw Ling Han's joking expression. He mustered up his courage and said, "President Ling Han, this is my private matter." "President Ling, this is my personal matter. You take Secretary Ji back. The matter between me and Secretary Yi, we can settle it ourselves, it's fine." A scream pierced through the silence of the dark night. Manager Wu was in a sorry state as he crouched in the greenery. He covered one of his eyes as he turned around and looked at Ling Han in disbelief. The immense pain almost swallowed him up. He stumbled for a long time, but couldn't say a word. Ling Han glanced at Yi Huanyan and raised his hand. Yi Huanyan understood and quickly took out the handkerchief she always carried with her from her pocket. She very familiarly handed it to him. He slowly wiped his hands and slowly approached the flower bed. Manager Wu shuddered and subconsciously shrank back. "President Ling, let's talk nicely." "Ling Han, why don't we just forget it?" Yi Huanyan couldn't help but speak up from behind. Ling Han's hands were heavy. She had seen him boxing in the underground boxing arena before. He wouldn't get off the stage until his opponent's face was covered in blood. Ling Han frowned slightly and glanced at Yi Huanyan. Then he looked at Manager Wu, who was curled up in a ball. His gaze was as sharp as a knife. "If you dare to reveal a single word about what happened today, I can guarantee that no company will dare to take you in. Do you believe me?" I believe. President Ling, I believe, please spare me." Ling Han wiped his hands clean and threw an expensive handkerchief on Manager Wu's chest like a rag. He coldly spat out a word, "Scram." Seeing Manager Wu scramble to get out of the car, Yi Huanyan slowly exhaled and moved her wrist that was in pain. "You feel very lucky, don't you?" The man turned around. His tone was cold, and his face was cold. She suddenly shuddered and clenched her fingers. "You dare to let a man send you home so late at night, and even bring a drunkard? Yi Huanyan, do you think your life is too boring? What is in your head?" The vicious words she expected didn't come. Instead, such a reprimand made her feel inexplicably warm. It was like seeing the old Ling Han. Chapter 63. Yi Huanyan plucked up her courage and asked in the face of his anger, "Well, can you help me get Xiao Yu upstairs first before you scold me?" Ling Han was speechless for a moment. He stared at Yi Huanyan and took a deep breath. "Have I been too nice to you recently? Have you learned how to push your luck?" I'll do it myself." Yi Huanyan swallowed hard and waved her hand. She admitted that she was unlucky and reached out to pull Ji Xiaoya, who was sprawled out in the middle of the road. "Are you done?" A cold male voice rang out in the shabby neighborhood. "I'm done. Come on." Yi Huanyan squatted on the ground and assumed a horse stance. Ling Han lifted Ji Xiaoya by the collar and threw her onto Yi Huanyan's back in disgust. Although Yi Huanyan was mentally prepared, she still stumbled and almost flipped Ji Xiaoya over. Ling Han grabbed Ji Xiaoya's collar and controlled the direction of the force. He said impatiently, "Can you do it?" Yi Huanyan grabbed Ji Xiaoya's arms with both hands and said bitterly, "I have to do it even if I can't." For a person like Ling Han, who was deeply obsessed with cleanliness, asking him to send this woman, who was as dirty as a mud monkey upstairs, was simply a fantasy. Helping her to get her onto his back was something that he should be extremely grateful for. Fortunately, Ji Xiaoya lived on the 3rd floor, so she had to climb the elevator until she was half dead. After throwing Ji Xiaoya onto the sofa, Yi Huanyan held onto the corner of the table. She grabbed an empty cup on the table and poured some water into it. When she turned around, Ling Han was still standing at the door. She was slightly stunned. "Aren't you going back?" Ling Han frowned. "What? You don't plan to go back? Xiao Yu is so dirty. I have to help her take a bath first. It might be a little troublesome. If you're busy, don't worry about me and go back first. I'll make do with her for the night." A single apartment, it was really just passable. There was a sofa, a bed, and a single bed. As a drunkard, Ji Xiaoya would definitely sleep on the bed, while Yi Huanyan could only sleep on the sofa. Ling Han frowned and looked around the apartment. He pulled out a chair and said, "I'm not in a hurry. You can continue." This answer made Yi Huanyan's jaw drop. She was at a loss. "You said you were going to wait for me here? The environment here doesn't make me feel that you can rest. I don't want to see a secretary in a bad state at work tomorrow," he said righteously. "It will be my time that will be wasted." Yi Huanyan's expression stiffened. She didn't know what to say. "You're the boss. Whatever you say is right." However, this terrible environment had become like heaven in the 6 months she had been tortured by him. Occasionally, she would get permission from Ling Han to spend the night at Ji Xiaoya's place, which was the only relief in her painful time. "I'll go run the bath. Help me keep an eye on Xiao Yu." Forget it. You don't have to watch over her. She probably won't wake up." Yi Huanyan stood up and finished speaking softly, as though she was talking to herself. When she finished speaking, she was shocked. Ling Han had only been nice to her for a few days, and she actually dared to talk to him like this. Was she really acting like he said when he gave her an inch and she wanted a mile? She ran into the bathroom gloomily, turned on the tap, and ran the water to block out the sound outside. On the sofa, Ji Xiaoya was in a daze. Suddenly, she felt nauseous. She flipped over and fell to the ground. Ling Han bounced up from the chair. He frowned and approached Ji Xiaoya. He reached out and kicked her ankle. "Hey, are you okay?" "Cruz." Ji Xiaoya suddenly sat up and hugged Ling Han's leg. She refused to let go. "Prince Charming, you're in my dream again." The moment Ji Xiaoya hugged him, Ling Han felt disgusted. He wanted to chop off his own leg. This woman reeked of alcohol. Was she crazy? "Yi Huanyan, Yi Huanyan, get out here." In the living room, there was a man's hoarse and trembling roar. There was no movement in the bathroom. A certain someone was thinking about life amidst the sound of splashing water. At this moment, Ji Xiaoya had already hugged Ling Han's leg and was about to get up. Ling Han had a rare look of fear in his eyes. "Ji Xiaoya, don't you want your job anymore? Let go." As soon as he finished speaking, he felt the weight on his leg lighten, and Ji Xiaoya collapsed on his feet. His hanging heart slowly fell back to the ground. Blurg, the pungent smell of vomit hit him in the face. His leg felt hot. When Yi Huanyan came out of the bathroom, she saw Ling Han standing in the living room like a pillar. His face was ashen. Ji Xiaoya had climbed down from the sofa for some reason. She was lying beside Ling Han's leg and kissing it. This posture was very strange. Before she could question why he was in such a weird position, the smell of vomit attracted her gaze to Ling Han's horrifying instep. One of his legs was covered in Japanese food and beer. At this moment, it was emitting a strong stench. The culprit was lying on his other leg. Her hair was disheveled, and she looked like a female ghost that had just crawled out of the television. Yi Huanyan covered her mouth and nose. Her face was stiff. "I think Xiao Yu, she didn't do it on purpose." Ling Han's face was ashen. His murderous gaze had already cut Yi Huanyan into pieces. He gritted his teeth and said, "Shouldn't you deal with this disgusting thing first?" Yi Huanyan suddenly reacted and raised her hands. Don't move. Don't move. Let me think what to do. Get rid of her first." Ling Han looked like he was about to break down. He dared to say that he had never experienced such a disgusting thing in his life. Yi Huanyan hurriedly dragged the unconscious female ghost to the bathroom. She quickly took off her clothes and threw her into the bathtub to soak. Then, she held a plastic basin full of water, grabbed a towel from the bathroom shelf, and rushed to the living room. Why don't you take off your pants? She pinched her nose and squatted in front of Ling Han. She looked at the lump on the ground and didn't know where to start. You want me to take off my pants here? Ling Han couldn't believe what he heard. There's no other way. I can't. I can't wash your pants while you stand, right? Yi Huanyan's face was bitter. Just make do with it. I'll find you a towel later. You can wrap it around yourself first. Ling Han raised his hand to support his forehead. At this moment, he regretted coming here in the middle of the night. He should have let this woman suffer a little at the hands of the ill-intentioned man in the company to teach her a lesson. 10 minutes later, Ling Han was sitting on the sofa with a blanket covering his legs. 10 minutes ago, he was still disdainful of the blanket that was indeed a little dirty. Under the blanket was the lower half of his body, which was only wearing his underwear. Yi Huanyan squatted in front of the pile of vomit and turned to ask Ling Han, "Are you still wearing these pants?" "No." "That's good." Yi Huanyan nodded and didn't ask any more questions. She directly rolled up the disgusting vomit on the ground with Ling Han's expensive pants and threw it into the trash can. The man behind her stiffened, and his voice was full of disbelief. "What are you going to make me wear?" Chapter 64. Yi Huanyan, who was busy cleaning up his vomit with a tissue, froze when she heard this. Yeah, she threw the pants into the trash can. What was he going to wear back? I'll go buy you a new pair. She didn't dare to look back. She heard a huff behind her. He seemed to be very angry with her. After a while, he snorted and said in a contemptuous tone, "I won't wear it if you buy it from a street stall." Ling Han deliberately made things difficult for her. He knew that Ji Xiaoye lived in the middle of nowhere to save money. There wasn't even a security guard, let alone a large shopping mall. Even if there were security guards, there wouldn't be any shopping malls open at this time. She should be glad that she could find a street stall selling pants. Yi Huanyan closed her eyes and made up her mind. Since she had to die, she might as well deal with Ji Xiaoye first. It was already late at night by the time she pulled her out of the bathtub, dried her, and changed into her pajamas. She wiped the sweat off her forehead, went to the living room, and sat down on the chair. She had just caught her breath when she looked up and met Ling Han's eyes. "Pants." Ling Han stared at her. Yi Huanyan's face froze. She said embarrassedly, "Look, it's already past midnight. The shopping malls are closed." Ling Han's face fell. He thought for a long time and seemed to have made a big decision. He glanced at Yi Huanyan. "Forget it. Just buy one. A street stall will do." Yi Huanyan pursed her lips and thought for a few seconds. A street stall, it has to close at this time. People who set up street stalls are people too. People have to sleep. Okay, young master. Why don't you wear a towel? No one can see you at night anyway. I'll drive you home. That'll be fine. Hearing Yi Huanyan's words, Ling Han's face looked constipated. His face was so gloomy that it looked like water was about to drip out. "Yi Huanyan, have I been too nice to you lately?" The words he squeezed out were usually lethal to Yi Huanyan, but at this moment, he was sitting cross-legged on Ji Xiaoye's strawberry pink sofa, like a disabled person with a blanket over his legs. He looked inexplicably humorous. "I don't have a choice," she said bitterly. "How about I go home and get it for you?" Ling Han glanced at a certain drunkard who was tossing and turning restlessly on the bed. The fear of vomiting filled his heart, and his face darkened. No, leaving him alone in a room with this crazy woman would only make him lose his mind. "This won't do, that won't do, then what do you want?" Yi Huanyan sounded quite dissatisfied. She was tired all day, and she had to clean up Ji Xiaoye's mess at night. She was almost sexually assaulted by a pervert, so she was very impatient now. It was the first time Ling Han had heard Yi Huanyan speak in such an impatient tone. His face changed instantly, and he looked at Yi Huanyan coldly. The eerie coldness in his eyes was bone-chilling. Yi Huanyan suddenly shivered. In a hurry, She bounced up from the chair and said, "I'll call Ling Ling and ask her to call a cab to send over," before Ling Han could say anything. She grabbed her phone, avoided his gaze, and plunged into the bathroom. It was the middle of the night. Whether she could call a cab was a problem, and when it would be delivered was another problem. Although she said that, she wasn't sure when the pants would be delivered. After the call, she sat on the toilet for a while, wondering if she should go out. After all, the atmosphere outside was very unfriendly, and it wasn't as comfortable as in the bathroom. Bang, bang. A tall figure stood outside the frosted door of the bathroom. He sounded so dissatisfied that he almost broke the door open. "Yi Huanyan, why did you take so long to make a call?" She was stunned, then slowly stood up from the toilet and opened the bathroom door. She casually made up an excuse. Ling Ling was asleep. It took me a long time to get through. At this time, Ling Han had a blanket around his legs that dragged on the floor. It was the style of a long dress that dragged on the floor, but it was a little too big, so it looked very out of place. After explaining, she saw that he still didn't leave. Yi Huanyan held back her laughter and asked in a muffled voice, "Is there anything else?" "Going to the bathroom." Ling Han glanced at her. "Why? Do you want to help?" Yi Huanyan's face suddenly blushed. She hurriedly tried to pass by him. "No, it's okay. You go." The bathroom in Ji Xiaoya's house was very narrow. Ling Han stood at the door and blocked 2/3 of the bathroom. Yi Huanyan thought that she could pass through the gap between Ling Han and the wall because of her small size. She didn't expect that, in her panic, she would stumble and trip over her right foot. She lost her balance and fell straight forward. She cried out in alarm. Her eyes widened as she clawed wildly in the air. Hiss! The sound of the man sucking in a breath of cold air was heard. The expected pain did not come. The moment she fell, she was picked up by an arm. At this moment, her chest was pressed firmly against a firm arm. One hand was supporting herself against the wall, while the other hand was grabbing onto the collar of a certain someone's shirt. This position was maintained for a few seconds. There was a crisp sound of a button breaking in the air. The white button of the shirt popped out of Ling Han's chest and disappeared without a trace. At the same time, Yi Huanyan's hand that was holding on to his collar suddenly loosened. Her whole body pressed against that curved arm again. The squeezing pain from her chest and the sound of the button breaking made her suddenly come back to her senses. In a fluster, she pushed away Ling Han's arm and stood firm again. Her face was red, and her head was lowered. She looked very uneasy. In the past, in Ling Han's eyes, these coincidences or accidents were always her scheming, throwing herself into his arms. She had heard a lot of dirty words, so when faced with this kind of situation, she was naturally mentally prepared. Ling Han retracted his arm and casually swung it twice. He said indifferently, "You can't even walk properly. It's a miracle that you're able to live to this age." The sliding door of the bathroom was closed with a rip sound. She stood at the door with a stunned expression. Only the pain in her chest reminded her that this wasn't a dream. In the bathroom, Ling Han clenched his fingers. After closing the door, he stood in front of the mirror and breathed heavily. There was still a lingering warmth from the soft touch on his arm, which made a certain part of his body a little restless. He slightly frowned, lowered his head, and washed his face with cold water to reduce the discomfort. He looked up at the mirror. There were 2 scratches on the left side of his neck. He gently touched them with his fingers, and his frown deepened. Ling Han stayed in the bathroom for a long time, so long that Yi Huanyan sat on the sofa and nodded repeatedly while hugging Ji Xiaoya's little toy chick. She couldn't avoid the sound of the bathroom door opening. She nodded fiercely and almost fell off the sofa. She raised her head and looked at the man who had just come out of the bathroom in shock. Her eyes were blurry. "You took a shower?" She looked at the man with wet bangs walking out in disbelief. Ling Han frowned and looked at her impatiently. "Can I?" Okay. Yi Huanyan's mouth stiffened, and the surprise on her face gradually disappeared. Chapter 65. Ling Han sat under the air conditioner with his wet hair, looking like he was waiting for it to dry naturally. Yi Huanyan suddenly couldn't bear it. There should be a clean towel that hasn't been used yet. I'll go find it for you. You'll catch a cold easily. Based on Ling Han's temper, she reckoned that he had really taken a shower and did not touch any of the things inside the shower towel. After rummaging in the bathroom for a long time, Yi Huanyan finally found a pink towel and a hairdryer with a label that hadn't been torn off. Walking out of the bathroom with these two tools, Yi Huanyan suddenly felt a little warm. It's better to dry your hair. Come over here, the socket is here. She stood beside Ji Xiaoya's makeup cabinet and plugged in the hairdryer. She tested the temperature with her palms and called out to Ling Han with an unnatural expression. She had never had the chance to be so intimate with Ling Han before, and she wasn't sure if Ling Han would agree. For a moment, she was looking forward to it, but also a little nervous. After a few seconds of silence in front of the sofa, he finally moved a chair over. His black hair passed through her fingers, leaving a string of wet touch. From her angle, she could see Ling Han's hair, the bridge of his nose, and the soaked shirt on his body. After a button fell off, his wheat-colored chest was stained with fine water droplets that rose and fell slowly with his breathing. She blushed and hurriedly avoided his gaze. When the hairdryer reached the left side, she suddenly noticed the 2 scratches on her neck. The scratches were still very fresh, and a trace of blood was oozing out. She suddenly froze and abruptly recalled the touch of her fingers on her skin at the bathroom door just now, and the sound of him inhaling cold air. "Are you planning to burn me to death?" Ling Han's voice suddenly rang out. She was so frightened that her hand trembled, and she almost dropped the hairdryer in her hand. While she was in a daze, the hairdryer port had been pointed at the same spot for a long time. She touched her hair and felt that it was hot. Sorry. She hurriedly apologized. "I didn't do it on purpose." Ling Han's expression didn't change. He looked indifferent and said in a cold voice, "Deliberately trying to kill me with a hairdryer? Your IQ isn't that low." She pursed her lips and was momentarily at a loss for words. She could only stare blankly at the scratch marks on his neck. She felt a little apologetic. "You should be done." He raised his hand and touched his hair. He probably felt that it was about time, so he got up and unbuttoned his shirt. Yi Huanyan's expression changed. She subconsciously glanced at Ji Xiaoya, who was sleeping soundly on the bed. Her expression was flustered. What are you doing?" Ling Han frowned. He took off his wet shirt and put it on the back of the chair. "What are you thinking about? Blow dry it." Her face stiffened as she watched him turn around with a cold expression. He wrapped himself in the blanket and returned to the sofa. He closed his eyes to rest, as if he didn't want to bother with her at all. The sound of the hairdryer filled the entire small apartment. Yi Huanyan didn't know if Ling Han was asleep or not. She secretly looked at him, but she didn't see him open his eyes. Ling Han closed his eyes. In the whistling sound of the wind, he gradually felt a rare trace of sleepiness. This was the first time he had experienced insomnia. His consciousness was a little hazy. He tried to grab hold of a trace of clarity in his chaotic consciousness, but it drifted further and further away with the whistling sound of the wind in his ears. In the distance, there was a pure girl in an oversized school uniform. She had neat bangs and a ponytail. Her smile was brimming with the breath of spring. He couldn't forget about her for a long time. Suddenly, he felt a cold sensation on his neck. He opened his eyes reflexively and grabbed the wrist by his side. He used so much strength that Yi Huanyan cried out in pain. Cold sweat seeped out of her forehead. Hearing this sound, Ling Han suddenly let go of his hand. Touching his neck, he turned around and asked coldly, "What are you doing?" The ointment in Jean Yan's hand fell to the ground. There was still a trace of shiny, transparent ointment on her index finger. She took a deep breath to ease the shock she had just received. She said aggrievedly, "Your neck. I wanted to apply some ointment for you, but you were asleep, so I didn't wake you." The woman in front of him had red eyes and looked very aggrieved. Ling Han lowered his hand from his neck and felt a hand full of ointment. It was sticky and disgusting. He took 2 pieces of tissue paper in disgust and wiped his hand clean. He exhaled impatiently. "Couldn't you have woken me up?" Yi Huanyan's expression froze. She lowered her head and looked at the ointment on the carpet. Her breathing was heavy. Seeing that he was sleeping soundly, she didn't have the heart to wake him up. She thought that if she was careful, she wouldn't wake him up. She didn't expect that not only did she wake him up, but she also hurt her wrist. "I'm sorry." When this aggrieved voice fell into Ling Han's ears, he felt a little helpless. He lowered his head and picked up the ointment and handed it to her. "You're already awake. What's the use of saying this? You should finish what you started." Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. She hesitated and took the ointment from his hand. She was a little incredulous. She didn't know why Ling Han had changed during this period of time. It seemed to have started after the day she drowned. She guessed that it might have been because something had happened to her, and he realized how important she was. However, after that day, he asked her to move back to the old mansion. His flippant attitude made her feel very uneasy. She couldn't understand why. His sudden appearance tonight made her very surprised. Perhaps no matter what, at least he had her in his heart. Only a fool would believe that he had coincidentally appeared at Ji Xiaoya's place, right? She rubbed the cold ointment from her index finger and spread it evenly on her neck. It seeped into her skin, and the burning pain was relieved. Ling Han was a little surprised by the effect of the ointment, but he didn't show any expression on his face. After the ointment took effect, he felt the warmth of her fingertips. When she touched his skin, there was a trace of numbness that gradually spread. He couldn't help but turn his head. The corner of his eyes swept over her cheeks. Her lowered eyebrows were pure and sweet. Her thick eyelashes were slightly trembling. Her lips were tightly pursed, as if she was a little nervous. Even her breathing was very soft. He unknowingly turned a lot more. His hot breath brushed past her cheeks. She was suddenly startled. She raised her head, but her eyes met his. In that moment, she was a little dazed. It was as if she saw a scene of stars shining for her. Her forehead rubbed against the tip of his nose. Her nose swept across his lips. These subtle touches were enough to make her tremble. Her heart was in turmoil. A trace of warmth suddenly fell from her lips. It was as if she had been caught off guard and fell into a sweet trap. She panicked and didn't know what to do. But he was at ease and felt her thoroughly. The back of her head rested on the narrow sofa. Her chest was tightly pressed against his broad chest. She was violently moving up and down. He kissed her deeply and wantonly. He was overbearing and warm. He crushed her bit by bit and stuck to her again. He swept her into a gentle storm, making the world spin. She didn't dare believe that this was real. She thought it was a dream, and even hoped that it was a dream. Because even if she woke up from a dream, she wouldn't feel heartache if she didn't have it. But after reality turned cruel, all that was left was emptiness. Chapter 66. A pair of hands reached under her skirt, and she couldn't help but let out a murmur. Ding dong, ding dong. The doorbell rang, and in the romantic atmosphere, it was like a heavy bomb, shattering the warmth in the room. Yi Huanyan clearly felt the hand between her legs stiffen, and then the temperature of the body around her suddenly dropped a few degrees. That face instantly returned to its usual cold expression. Ling Ling had gone through a lot of difficulties to deliver the clothes, and she was standing at the door, sweating profusely. The cold wind in November made her sweat so much, and it showed how serious she was at work. However, Yi Huanyan's expression didn't look good, and when she smiled, it was very forced. "Miss Yi, did I deliver the clothes too late?" Yi Huanyan waved her hand and laughed. "No, you did very well. Rip." The bathroom door was violently opened, and a tall figure walked straight to the door of the apartment. He didn't even look at the two of them, and his back was extremely cold. Yi Huanyan hurriedly packed up her bag and pulled Ling Ling to follow him. The moment the door closed, a certain someone on the bed rolled over with her eyes narrowed. She let out a long breath, jumped up from the bed, and sprinted to the bathroom. F***ck, I almost suffocated to death. By the time she got home, it was already early in the morning. Yi Huanyan fell into her bed, and she didn't even have the energy to take a shower. As soon as she lay down, her mind was filled with the scene at Ji Xiaoya's house. That was the first time in her life that she felt such warmth from Ling Han. It was like a dream, and she couldn't get it out of her mind. When she thought of this, she couldn't sleep. She resigned herself to her fate, got up, and went to the bathroom. She turned on the tub of water and soaked herself in it, trying to relieve her burning heart. The bathroom on the second floor was separated by a ceiling. In the same position, the shower head was splashing water. Unlike the hot and humid atmosphere on the first floor, the bathroom on the second floor was cool and refreshing. The icy cold water splashed against the back, splashing fine water droplets. Ling Han suddenly grabbed a handful of his hair, his fingers passing through his hair, and then wiped the water droplets off his face. He took a deep breath, and with great difficulty, he managed to wash down the restlessness in his body. He regretted what he had done half an hour ago in that small apartment. He frowned and stared at the mirror for a long time. He couldn't get rid of that shy pink face in his mind. Even the cold water on his body couldn't get rid of the stuffy heat in his heart. Could he really let her go? At least right now, his body told him that it was impossible. The next day, Yi Huanyan woke up with a face full of lack of sleep. She washed her face, brushed her teeth, changed her clothes, and put on some light makeup. When she came out to eat, Ling Han had also just woken up. She was originally sleepy, but when she saw Ling Han coming downstairs, she suddenly shivered and woke up in an instant. "Good morning, young master." "Good morning, Miss Yi." Ling, as usual, happily greeted the two. What a coincidence. Young master and Miss both woke up at the right time. It was a very normal sentence, but when it fell into Yi Huanyan's ears, it was inexplicably ambiguous. Her face slightly reddened, and she lowered her head and braced herself to respond. I woke up normally. My alarm clock is at this time, and I usually wake up at this time as well. There's nothing special." Ling was slightly stunned, and looked suspiciously at Yi Huanyan. It was just a casual sentence. Did it need to be so deliberate? Morning, Ling Han coughed dryly to cover up his morning, and sat at the table expressionlessly drinking his coffee. Yi Huanyan was startled, and thought that she was seeing things. When she looked up, she met Ling's equally startled gaze. Did she just hear Ling Han say morning to them? Ling nodded meaningfully, and Yi Huanyan hesitated for a while before she finally reacted. She slightly trembled as she replied, "Morning." Her reply was so hurried that her voice cracked, and she couldn't hide her fear. Ling Han's brows slightly furrowed, but he didn't say anything, and instantly returned to normal. After eating, she naturally took Ling Han's car to work. The long-lost feeling of her heart beating wildly seemed to be slowly recovering in her body. She took the initiative to turn on the music in the car, and the gentle and soothing piano music was like a candy cake smeared with honey, making Yi Huanyan feel inexplicably sweet. If everything could start over like this, it would be a huge turning point in her life. As soon as Ji Xiaoya entered the office, she felt a strong atmosphere of public display of affection. Secretary Yi, who had always advocated a strict and old-fashioned style of work, was actually playing music in the secretary's office. Ji Xiaoya held back her astonished gaze, put down her bag, and leaned against the desk with her coffee cup. She asked a woman who was humming a love song, "Did you go out and pick up money today?" Yi Huanyan blinked. "Something happier than picking up money. I feel like I'm in a good state recently, and I feel like I can fly." Ji Xiaoya's heart twitched when she thought of a scene that happened on her sofa last night. "Yes, the two of you almost flew on my sofa last night." She rolled her eyes and pretended to be indifferent. "I'm going to make coffee. You better turn off the music before I come back, or I'll complain that you're disturbing a single dog's work." Yi Huanyan giggled. "I'll only play this one song, and I'll turn it off after that." You can make the coffee a little longer. This song is a little longer." Ji Xiaoya widened her eyes and looked in disbelief at the woman who felt like she was soaking in a honey jar. Did she really not learn from her lesson? It was rare to see her so happy, so Ji Xiaoya didn't have the heart to discourage her. She silently took the cup to the pantry and slowly thought about what happened last night. She woke up in the middle of the night and felt a lot better after vomiting. Yi Huanyan took her to take a bath, and when she climbed into bed, she was almost awake, but she was a little confused about what happened before she vomited. When she was making coffee, she glanced at the entrance of the pantry from the corner of her eye and suddenly caught a glimpse of a familiar figure. "Hey, Manager Wu." Her eyes lit up. After what happened last night, Manager Wu couldn't wait to run away when he heard the names of Ji Xiaoya and Yi Huanyan. This shout was like a death knell, and it scared him out of his wits. His legs trembled like a sieve. Secretary Ji, why are you looking for me? I am in the middle of delivering something to President Ling." "Hey, stop right there. If you want to deliver something to President Ling, shouldn't you deliver it to the secretary's office? Secretary Yi is busy right now, so you can leave it here first. I'll make coffee and bring it to you." Ji Xiaoya frowned and chased after him at the entrance of the pantry. She patted him on the shoulder, and Manager Wu suddenly went limp and fell to the ground. Manager Wu. Ji Xiaoya quickly reached out to help him up, and her face was full of disbelief. She didn't have much strength, so she patted him lightly. Manager Wu, are you okay?" When Manager Wu saw that she was going to help him up, he panicked even more. Before he could stand properly, he anxiously rolled and crawled a long distance away. "I suddenly remembered that I still have some changes to make to my proposal." Chapter 67. Manager Wu's flustered look left Ji Xiaoya at a loss. She stood in front of the pantry for a few seconds without saying a word in surprise. When Ji Xiaoya returned to the secretary's office with a cup of coffee, Yi Huanyan had already turned off the music and started working seriously. Seeing that Ji Xiaoya was in a daze, she couldn't help but ask, "Did you see a ghost in the pantry? You didn't even have a soul when you came back." Hearing this, Ji Xiaoya came back to her senses and frowned. "I just met Manager Wu. When he saw me, it was as if he saw a ghost. Is there a ghost on my back? Let me see." Her words sent a chill down Ji Xiaoya's spine. Yi Huanyan rolled her eyes at her. "What nonsense are you talking about? Manager Wu is a scumbag. After what happened last night, he didn't run away when he saw you. How much mental fortitude does he have? I think he'll have to resign in 2 days." Seeing that she was in a daze, Yi Huanyan had no choice but to tell her everything that happened last night at the entrance of the residential area. "I think this person has bad intentions. You should avoid interacting with people like this in the future. You won't even know if you've been tricked or taken advantage of." Following Yi Huanyan's words, her scattered memories gradually pieced together. It was as if a string had suddenly connected in her brain. Everything that happened last night came back to her. *CK. I can't believe he's that kind of person. Ji Xiaoya slammed the coffee cup on the table, and the coffee inside splashed all over the table. She clenched her fists angrily. "No wonder he ran away when he saw me. I didn't think of it earlier. If I did, I'd tear him apart." "Calm down. Fortunately, nothing serious happened last night." Speaking of this, the anger in Ji Xiaoya's eyes eased. So last night, it was Ling Han who appeared to resolve the situation. Her fixed image of that scumbag suddenly took a 180-degree turn at this moment. For the whole morning, Ji Xiaoya compared the documents sent by her subordinates and cursed Manager Wu's ancestors. During this time, she did not stop cursing. When it was almost time for the lunch break, Yi Huanyan finally couldn't take it anymore. She slowly exhaled and said, "Xiaoyu, you should think of something better. If you curse again, are we still going to eat lunch today?" Ji Xiaoya blinked angrily. Then she thought about it. "That's right, we can't ruin our mood for lunch. But Manager Wu, that son of a bitch, I'll spit in his face when I see him in the future." Yi Huanyan sighed helplessly and got up to leave the desk. You can take your time scolding. I'll go deliver the documents. Wait a moment, I still have 3 completed comparisons here. Help me send them in together to President Ling. Seeing Yi Huanyan's graceful figure enter the president's office, Ji Xiaoya's gloomy expression inexplicably improved. During this period of time, she had seen the change in Ling Han's attitude towards Yi Huanyan. Did he suddenly become enlightened and want to make up for it? Or was his soul cast out of his body? In any case, this was a good sign for Yi Huanyan, and it was also a good sign for her. After all, she now had a studio with a high salary and low labor costs thanks to her best friend. She couldn't just watch her best friend suffer while she enjoyed it. In the president's office, Yi Huanyan skillfully placed a thick stack of documents in her hands on Ling Han's desk. These are few proposals sent by the planning department, including the final revision of the company's development plan before the end of the year sent by the first planning department, as well as the amendments to the various artist management plans and the company's regulations made by the second planning department. Okay. Ling Han nodded and picked up the topmost document to flip through. Yi Huanyan stood there for a while, feeling a little uneasy. President Ling, if there's nothing else, I'll go out first. Are you busy with something? Ling Han raised his head and looked at her expressionlessly. Not at the moment. Ling Han lowered his head again, his pen circling the document as he ordered without looking up. Make a cup of coffee and sit down for a while. I'll finish reading soon. Yi Huanyan reacted for a few seconds, then responded and quietly walked to the independent pantry in Ling Han's office to make coffee. The aroma of the coffee gradually filled the entire office. Ling Han had always been very particular about these things. He had specific requirements for the coffee. The coffee machine was also a high-end custom-made coffee machine. Fresh coffee beans were ground into powder in the machine, then mixed with hot water, boiled and filtered little by little, and finally dropped into the coffee cup drop by drop. President Ling, coffee. Okay. Ling Han casually picked up the cup of coffee that Yi Huanyan put in his hand and tasted it. His expression changed, and he frowned at Yi Huanyan. Warm? Yi Huanyan was stunned for a few seconds. Last time you said cold coffee tastes better, so I just put some ice in it. Is it not cold enough? Ling Han was speechless. He looked at the cup of cold coffee in his hand and felt very conflicted. He coughed dryly, put the cup of coffee aside, and asked casually, Has the company started preparing for the year-end holiday for artists and employees? Yi Huanyan's but had just touched the sofa when she heard him speak, so she jumped up from the sofa. Ling Han frowned and glanced at her. He looked a little unhappy. Why are you so surprised? Sit down. Yi Huanyan could only sit down silently. She organized her words and replied seriously, The planning department hasn't informed us yet. The company has a lot of activities this year, and the artists have a lot of work to do. More than 10% of the artists have their work scheduled until the end of next year. I'm afraid it will be a little difficult to have a year-end holiday like before. After all, some of the contracts have already been signed, so it's not good to change it at the last minute. When Pleasure Group was first established, it had the benefit of taking all the company's employees on a holiday before December. However, after Ling Han took over the company's artists developed and became more popular. Most of the A-listers did not have the time to participate in activities. The most obvious was the trip to Tahiti in December of the previous year. Except for a few A-listers who just happened to have time, the rest of the A-listers in the company were all invisible and newcomers. Ling Han frowned. He was a little unhappy when he thought of the situation a year ago. This was a tradition of pleasure. When it was first established, it was to let the artists and the company's employees get to know each other. This way, they could work together in front of the stage and behind the scenes. Although it had developed into a face-saving project, it was still Pleasure's corporate culture. It was also a good opportunity to attract attention. It will be held as usual this year. Check the itinerary. As of today, the artists whose schedules are full in December cannot be considered, but the rest can't be missed. I'll leave this matter to you. Me, Yi Huanyan pointed at her nose in disbelief. I am not suitable, right? She was a secretary. Her main responsibility was to help Ling Han organize the documents, share the work pressure, and improve work efficiency. However, she had never been in charge of planning an activity by herself. Ling Han glanced at her. Your ears are fine. I'll leave this matter to you. Chapter 68. Yi Huanyan walked out of the CEO's office with a blank look on her face. She hugged a stack of documents and sat down on her chair, sighing. Ji Xiaoya was going crazy because of the data. Seeing her come back, she quickly waved her hand. Come and help me see how the data is converted in the datasheet. I'm going crazy. Yi Huanyan did not move. I'm annoyed. You can do it yourself. Hearing this, Ji Xiaoya was slightly stunned. She turned her head in shock. You're annoyed? You're so open-minded that you can even tolerate that violent maniac. What else can you be annoyed about? Ji Xiaoya was the only one who could still make fun of her at a time like this. Yi Huanyan raised her head and glanced at her unhappily. President Ling gave me the company's collective outing plan in December this year. Hand it over to you. Ji Xiaoya exclaimed. Her voice suddenly rose an octave. Isn't this the planning department's job? Yes, he handed the planning department's job to me. It seems that he was not satisfied with the planning department's activities last year. A few well-known artists in the company did not participate, and the small artists did not participate much either. Only the company's employees had a good time. Yi Huanyan sighed helplessly. But if the planning department can't do it, what can a small secretary like me do? That's not necessarily true. Ji Xiaoya rolled her eyes. You know, the planning department seeks personal benefits from the year-end group activities every year. The activities at the places we go are actually voted for by the planning department's internal members. Because we can bring family members, the wives of the heads of the planning department voted for it. Only the company's employees have not seen much of the world and have a good time. How can the artists find it interesting? If they have the time to play monkey with us, they might as well do their jobs and earn money. Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. Is that so? Oh my God, I thought you knew about it. Ji Xiaoya frowned as if she thought of something. She slapped her thigh. By the way, you've never been on a group trip before, so of course you don't know the situation. It had been 4 years since Yi Huanyan had entered the company after graduation. 2 years ago, when Ling Dongming and Jiang Milan were still alive, the people in the company did not know about her identity as the eldest daughter of the company. She was also happy to keep a secret. It was very rare for the whole family to appear at the same time. During those 2 years, she did not go on the company's group trip. She carried her bag alone and went on a trip with 3 to 5 good friends. At the end of the year before last, Ling Dongming and Jiang Milan passed away unexpectedly. That year, the group trip was canceled, and the company made internal adjustments. After that, she rested at home for more than half a year. She only returned to work in the company at the beginning of spring this year. Yi Huanyan looked helpless. I think this mission is very difficult to complete. I really don't know what he's thinking. What if he screws it up? Seeing that she was in a dilemma, Ji Xiaoya didn't feel anything. Instead, she patted her shoulder encouragingly. I think that President Ling is giving you a good opportunity to make a contribution. This will also help you establish your image in the company. A perfect secretary has to be able to be both civil and military. She's an all-rounder who can take over the work of any department at any time. I believe that you can do it. Ji Xiaoya's words were not without basis. Ever since Yi Huanyan graduated and started working at Pleasure, she had come into contact with all kinds of documents from all the departments in the company. From the Human Resources Department to the Management and Planning Department to the Finance Department and even the Advertising Department. She had dabbled in them all. Sometimes, she could point out problems in their documents that were more professional than the people in their own department. She had never been a pampered young mistress. Jiang Milan had never planned to nurture her to the point where she only knew how to stretch out her hand for clothes and open her mouth for food. It was such a difficult position. She learned as she worked and survived. Ji Xiaoya's encouragement gave her hope. She suddenly felt that perhaps it was just as she said. This was a chance that Ling Han was giving her to perform. During the lunch break, it's about time. Let's go eat. Yi Huanyan closed her laptop, took the meal card of the company's internal canteen, packed her things, and prepared to leave. The phone on the table suddenly rang. It was an internal call. Ji Xiaoya had a long face and looked like she was unwilling to answer the phone. Looking for me? Okay. I'm coming. After hanging up the phone, Ji Xiaoya stuffed her meal card into Yi Huanyan's hand. Help me get a serving of red braised pork. Someone is looking for me downstairs. I'll go and take a look. I'll probably meet you in the canteen in 10 minutes. Hey, why don't I get you a meal first? What if you have something to do and don't come back? No, what if I'm just delayed for a while and the red braised pork in the canteen will be gone? Ji Xiaoya hung her bag around Yi Huanyan's neck. Wait for me. 10 minutes. After saying this, he ran toward the elevator in a 100-meter dash. Yi Huanyan smiled helplessly and walked to the canteen. Just as she walked to the entrance of the canteen, an urgent ringtone sounded in her pocket. Ji Xiaoya was incoherent on the other end of the phone. You don't go to the canteen. Come to the entrance of the company and send my bag over. Yi Huanyan looked at the canteen window close by and helplessly touched her dry stomach. She couldn't help but complain. I told you to bring it yourself. If the red braised pork is gone, you have to compensate me. The person on the other end of the phone seemed to have heard a big joke and laughed deafeningly. Come, the red braised pork will fill your stomach. Don't hang up the phone. I'm afraid you won't be able to find me. At the entrance of the pleasure group, Yi Huanyan carried 2 bags in her hands and looked at the square at the entrance of the group for a long time. But she didn't see a single person. At this moment, Ji Xiaoya's voice sounded in her earpiece. Go straight in this direction until you reach the side of the road. Then turn right and go straight. What are you doing? Yi Huanyan was confused, but she had to follow her instructions. Ji Xiaoya's overly excited voice sounded in her earpiece. She couldn't stand it and finally walked around the pleasure group in a big circle and entered a remote alley. You'll be there after you pass through the alley. After exiting the alley, there were few people on the road. This was the back door of the pleasure group, the blind spot of the business center. Most of them were residents who used to live in the old town, like old ladies and old men. A sapphire sports car parked on the side of the road was out of place in this undeveloped old street. In Yi Huanyan's eyes, it was exceptionally familiar. Out of the alley. Do you see a sports car on the side of the road? Just walk over and get in the car. Yi Huanyan walked along the road suspiciously. I see you. Yi Huanyan's earpiece exploded. Her whole body trembled and she almost dropped her phone. The back door of the sports car suddenly opened. Ji Xiaoya pulled her in without giving her any time to react. What are you doing? You're so mysterious. Yi Huanyan complained. Before she could finish, she glanced at the man sitting in the driver's seat from the corner of her eye. From the rearview mirror, she could only see that he was wearing sunglasses and a mask, covering his face tightly. Chapter 69. Sun Yanhua took off his sunglasses and mask. He nodded at Yi Huanyan as a greeting. Before he could speak, Yi Huanyan's face had already begun to darken. They hadn't seen each other for 10 years. When did Lu Shun become so shrewd? It was as if a nerve in her brain had suddenly been cut off. All the complaints in her stomach were suddenly swallowed back down. Yi Huanyan looked at his face. At this moment, she felt like she had been fooled. Yan, are you surprised? Are you surprised? Brother Hua came to me for lunch today. I said that I had an appointment with you in the cafeteria. I couldn't leave you alone, right? Brother Hua agreed after taking a sip of wine. He waited for you until now. Am I being nice enough? Ji Xiaoya's voice exploded in her ears. In her high excitement, she didn't notice Yi Huanyan's abnormality at all. Yi Huanyan put down her bag. Her tone was a little stiff. The bag is here. There's only 1 hour for lunch break. Shall you pay attention to the time? Hey, Yan Yan. Ji Xiaoya hurriedly grabbed her arm. Yan Yan, what are you doing? Brother Hua. Hey, Brother Hua treated us to lunch. I just called the Human Resources Department to ask for 2 hours of leave. You asked for leave? Yi Huanyan's expression changed. She shook off Ji Xiaoya's arm and suddenly raised her voice. What do you mean by asking for leave? Who asked you to ask for leave for me? Ji Xiaoya's body stiffened. Only then did she realize that Yi Huanyan's expression was very ugly. Yan Yan, what's wrong with you? Yi Huanyan's heart skipped a beat. When she saw Ji Xiaoya's blank and aggrieved face, she couldn't vent her anger. She could only suppress it. It's nothing. It's just that some people have bad intentions. Xiao Yu, you're too simple-minded. You're so easily fooled. What do you mean by fooled? Ji Xiaoya looked confused. In the driver's seat, Sun Yanhua's face stiffened as a trace of pain flashed through his eyes. I still have something to do, so I'll be leaving first. After saying that, Yi Huanyan pulled open the car door and drove back the way they came without looking back. The sound of the door opening came from behind. Last time, my fans misunderstood us and ganged up on you. I haven't apologized to you yet. This meal is my apology. Don't misunderstand, Sun Yanhua didn't care about his identity being exposed. He got out of the car and held the door with a guilty look on his face. Yi Huanyan did not turn around. His voice was cold and calm. Apologize? You've been using my best friend for so long, and only you know the purpose of treating me to this meal. I'm also considered to be in this industry. If you want to do public relations and create hype, forgive me for not being able to accompany you. After the meal, please send my friend back safely. Thank you. She wore 10 centimeters high heels and an elegant office lady suit as she disappeared into the narrow alley. When Yi Huanyan got out of the car, Ji Xiaoya had already opened the door on the other side and was ready to chase after him. However, she was not as fast as Sun Yanhua. She was a car's length away from Sun Yanhua. Her mind was in a fog as she listened to the conversation between the two people. She held the door and looked at Sun Yanhua's lonely face. Her heart suddenly became clearer. Sun Yanhua and Yi Huanyan knew each other long ago. Yi Huanyan walked in the alley with a sullen face. Behind him, there was the sound of hurried footsteps approaching. Yan Yan. Yan Yan, I said I'm not going. Yi Huanyan impatiently turned his head, only to see Ji Xiaoya sweating profusely and looking guilty. I'm not here to persuade you to go. Hua. Sun Yanhua has already left. I was wrong. Are you still angry? Ji Xiaoya lowered her head like a frosted eggplant. Yi Huanyan frowned. Looking at her like this, he couldn't get angry no matter how big he was. Forget it. Just this once. As soon as his voice fell, another hand wrapped around his arm. Ji Xiaoya's face changed faster than the weather, which made him speechless. Then can you tell me when you and Brother Hua met? Yi Huanyan's face darkened. He disdainfully pushed away her perverted hand. No. Just tell me. You see, I gave up a good opportunity to have lunch with my idol to chase you. It's considered atonement. Okay, what kind of atonement are you talking about? You made me walk for so long in vain. I didn't even get to eat. I'll treat you to a meal, okay? No, I'm not in the mood now. Because of Brother Hua? Because you're too stupid. You're too easily deceived. It's not bad to be deceived by a handsome guy. And I have nothing. What can Brother Hua deceive me? Yi Huanyan was walking to the entrance of the group building. Hearing this, she stopped and rolled her eyes. Ji Xiaoya, seeing her like a tiger looking at its prey, Ji Xiaoya hurriedly raised her hands to surrender. Okay, I know. Although you deceived me, you didn't suffer any losses, right? Facing Ji Xiaoya's calm admission and unrepentance, Yi Huanyan was helpless. She could only raise her hand, put her index finger to the tip of her nose, and said in a very serious tone, I'm seriously telling you one more time. After you enter this door, don't mention anything about Sun Yanhua in front of me. Also, don't tell anyone about Sun Yanhua and me. Consider it as me thanking you." Ji Xiaoya was slightly stunned. After a while, she nodded. "Okay." Yi Huanyan turned around in her high heels and walked toward the entrance of the group. Ji Xiaoya suddenly realized something behind her. "Hey, before you go in, tell me what's going on between you two." Pleasure Group's signboard crossed half of the group building, shining brightly under the winter afternoon sun. At the back of the group, on the old road in the old town where there were few people, the sapphire blue sports car was still very eye-catching. Sun Yanhua held the car door and glanced around coldly. Then he took a deep breath, walked quickly to the southeast corner of the alley, and unceremoniously pulled out a man squatting inside. "Give me the camera." The man was in his early 20s. After being discovered by Sun Yanhua, he didn't look very nervous. After hesitating for a while, he said, "Brother Hua, I didn't take anything. You don't have to look at it. I won't give it to the news agency." Hearing this familiar tone, Sun Yanhua frowned and vigilantly said, "Who asked you to come?" "Brother Dolly, didn't we agree? Last time, when the fans were attacked at the concert, it was handled too carelessly. Brother Lee asked me to help take more photos and use this opportunity to create some news. Give me the camera." "Hey, no, give me at the hotel." As soon as Sun Yanhua came back, he chased away all the assistants in the room, leaving only his manager Dolly. "You're back so early? Are you satisfied with the restaurant?" Li Dolly went to great lengths to order the restaurant for Sun Yanhua, all for this invitation to the fans. "Brother Lee, you better explain clearly what this is." Sun Yanhua threw the black high-magnification camera on the table, making a loud bang sound. "Ouch, be gentle, this is quite expensive. I said I asked you to explain clearly what is this." Sun Yanhua's face was so gloomy that it was almost dripping water. "Isn't it just a camera?" Li Dolly didn't look guilty at all, and his face was calm. "Who asked you to send someone to follow me and take photos? Do you think you don't have enough problems?" Chapter 70. The soundproofing of the hotel room was good, and the roaring in the room did not affect the assistants outside at all. Sun Yanhua kicked the wooden table in the room, and the camera shook a few times on the corner of the table. Finally, it hit the floor with a bang, and the camera, which was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, shattered instantly. Li Dolly froze, and his expression changed. Only then did he realize the seriousness of the matter. "It's just a few photos. This time, it won't cause any problems for her. You see, after the public relations statement was released last time, I heard that fans even went to give her gifts." It's pretty good, seeing Li Dolly's attitude. Sun Yanhua's expression became more and more ugly. He walked around the room and kicked the camera far away. The sound of the collision was very tragic. "How many times have I told you not to pull her in front of the camera? Don't you know how much dirty water there is? Do you not want to work anymore?" Yi Huanyan's attitude today was abnormally cold, not only because he used his relationship with Ji Xiaoya to treat her to a meal, but because she was such a sensitive person. She must have noticed the reporters. That was why she said those words. Li Dolly panicked and hurriedly said, "I'm doing it for your own good. I've also helped you to book the restaurant. You can eat, chat, and make friends. At the same time, you can also stabilize your recent fan base and increase your exposure. Isn't this a win-win situation? You have to think about it. Although the public statement was released and the apology was made, we didn't do anything to show the fans. The haters on the internet have already started to hold on to this matter and won't let it go." Sun Yanhua's eyes were bloodshot. When he thought about how the alienated relationship between him and Yi Huanyan had become even more rigid because of this incident, he was so angry that he wanted to smash things. His tone was gloomy. "So you're so kind to arrange the restaurant and help me get rid of the paparazzi. Good. You've done a good job of deceiving everyone." "Lian Hua, listen to me. Get out." I said get out." Li Dolly frowned, but he didn't dare to disobey him. He sighed, picked up his bag on the sofa, and walked out of his room. The huge room was filled with all kinds of gifts. Fan cards, flowers, chocolates, expensive musical instruments, exquisite cakes, and endless blessings. He took a bottle of red wine from the wine rack and sat on the carpet in a daze. Pleasure Group's secretary office. Ji Xiaoye lay on the table with a long face. "I'm so hungry." Yi Huanyan tidied her hair. "Do you think I'm not hungry? I only ate one of the biscuits I gave you. I wonder who's the one who tried to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice used to lure it." When the two of them returned to the cafeteria, not only was the braised pork gone, even the most unsightly and tasteless stir-fried cabbage was gone. Auntie Lou's attitude in the canteen was very bad. "There's only white rice and chili sauce left. Do you want to eat?" Previously, Ji Xiaoye had complained in front of the cafeteria auntie that the dishes that day were the worst in history. It just so happened that Auntie Lou was the cook that day, so they had a grudge against her. Today, they were unlucky that Auntie Lou was on duty again. Seeing that Ji Xiaoye was about to start a second war with Auntie Lou, Yi Huanyan hurriedly dragged her out of the cafeteria and gave her the last packet of biscuits left in her drawer. Only then did this calm the raging anger of this monkey-tempered eldest miss. When Ling Han passed by the secretary office, he took a few more glances and found that the secretary office was lifeless today. He didn't hear Ji Xiaoye's chattering. One of them was lying on the table and sighing, while the other was dozing off in front of her laptop. Xiao Mu was about to speak when Ling Han raised his hand to stop her. They entered the president's office one after another. What's wrong with the two of them in the secretary office? Are they not in good condition? Ling Han unbuttoned his suit and sat down. Rumors spread like wildfire in the company. Xiao Mu had always been astute, so she smiled when she heard this. "I heard that Secretary Ji and Secretary Yi went to the cafeteria late today. They also met Auntie Lou, who quarreled with Secretary Ji before on duty, so the two of them didn't eat." Ling Han's face darkened. What Auntie Lou? Who gave her the right to not feed the company's employees? Who hired this kind of person? Xiao Mu hurriedly explained. "It's like this. In order to promote the company's image and participate in environmental protection activities, the company has a CD-ROM program. Therefore, the cafeteria has a fixed amount of food every day, especially the amount of vegetables, which is only served until 11:30. This is the company's logistics department's rule. Moreover, in the company, basically, if one didn't eat at 11:30, it was tacitly agreed not to go to the cafeteria. Moreover, the secretarial department was different from other departments. They only had 1 hour for lunch break, so if they wanted to go out to eat, it would be a bit rushed, including waiting in line for food in this bustling business center. Just as Ji Xiaoye was starving to the point of dizziness in the office, Xiao Zhang, who came to deliver documents, exclaimed in surprise, "Secretary Yi, why didn't the two of you go to get today's afternoon snacks?" "Afternoon snacks?" Ji Xiaoye bounced up from her chair reflexively. "What afternoon snacks?" Xiao Zhang was dumbfounded. "Didn't you see the company's announcement? The company's benefits have been adjusted. From now on, afternoon tea and snacks will be provided every afternoon. Everyone will get one, and you have to line up to get it." Seeing that the two of them were at a loss, Xiao Zhang said helplessly, "No wonder everyone on your floor was staring at me when I came out of the elevator. You probably thought that I came to deliver something. So the secretarial department has to send a representative to your floor to get it." Yi Huanyan's hand paused in the middle of flipping through the documents, and she asked in confusion, "Who made the announcement? Why is it so sudden? I didn't see the company's logistics department give this suggestion before." Assistant Xiao made the announcement. "You saw it when you opened the company's homepage. You probably didn't notice it because you were busy." On the side, Ji Xiaoye had already swiftly browsed through the announcement and sprinted toward the elevator. Rain after a long drought. It was practically a divine soldier descending from the heavens. Xiao Mu sat in front of his desk and roughly browsed through the comments below the announcement he just made. They were all flattering words praising his boss, so he smiled helplessly. Ling Han had never been someone who advocated for the company's comfortable work. He felt that a harsh environment could temper people, and everything that was enjoyed during working hours was a waste of time and life. When Ling Han was still around, there was originally the benefit of afternoon tea. However, when Ling Han took over, the company adjusted and directly banned it. He was a rational businessman. Since his employees received his salary, then their working hours completely belonged to the company, and they should not have any thoughts of enjoying themselves. However, when he suddenly proposed to restore afternoon tea benefits today, Xiaomu felt for a moment that the trace of sensibility that other people could not find in him from head to toe was perhaps all used on that woman. Chapter 71. At the Pleasure Group. Before leaving work in the afternoon, an artist from the online streaming platform had been arrested for being involved in a pornographic incident. The Pleasure Group's online celebrity management department, as well as the entire company's publicity department and public relations department, stayed behind to work overtime. Ling Han took the lead and held a 3-hour meeting in the conference room to discuss countermeasures. Yi Huanyan delivered tea to the conference room 5 times. When she came out for the last time, she was yawning and sleepy. Ji Xiaoye came back from supper, full of energy. Okay, you just got better. I'll take over the night shift. You go back first. Yi Huanyan didn't refuse. She put down the teapot and yawned. Then I'll go first. They probably won't be done in half an hour. You go in and deliver tea. There are still some miscellaneous things. Just do as Assistant Xiao says. It's not my first day as a secretary. I know these things. Hurry up and go. If you don't go, you won't get overtime pay. Under Ji Xiaoye's constant urging, Yi Huanyan packed up her things and walked out of the company, looking back every 3 steps. It was already late at night, but the business center was still brightly lit. Many buildings were like the Pleasure Groups, or even more. Lights were on throughout the night. This was the competitive pressure of the city, and also the source of all the vitality of the city. She wore a black office skirt and a thin gray woolen coat as she walked towards the night bus stop. It was early November, and the temperature dropped again in winter. Before she reached the bus stop, she had already sneezed several times. Chiu, when she sneezed for the 6th time, a low-key white business van slowly stopped beside her. Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned and subconsciously moved to the side of the road. A man in a blue casual suit walked out of the car. He had an earring on his right ear, which made him look slightly feminine. He walked straight towards Yi Huanyan. Miss Yi, right? Do you have time now? I want to talk to you. Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. She looked at the familiar face and asked in confusion, Do I know you? The man stood straight and smiled politely. I am Su Nianhua's manager. You can call me brotherly. Upon hearing the name Su Nianhua, Yi Huanyan frowned and spoke in an unfriendly tone. What do you want now? Don't misunderstand. I was just thinking of finding a chance to explain to you what happened this afternoon. I won't take up too much of your time, just 10 minutes. Seeing Yi Huanyan's cold expression, Li Dali pursed his lips and extended 5 fingers. How about 5 minutes? We'll talk in the car, and we'll send you back while we're at it. Yi Huanyan glanced at the SUV, a trace of impatience appearing between her brows. He's also in the car? Li Dali's expression was a little strange. At Brother Hua, after getting into the car, Yi Huanyan finally understood why Li Dali had that expression. The spacious nanny van was filled with the strong smell of alcohol. Su Nianhua was lying in the back seat, unconscious. Beside him was an 4 drip hanging on a hanger. What happened to him? Yi Huanyan's expression tightened. Li Dali closed the door and said helplessly. In the afternoon, he was in a bad mood after he came back. When I opened the door at night, I saw that he was unconscious. I was afraid of alarming the reporters, so I didn't dare to go to the hospital. So I asked a doctor I know at the hospital to help and put him on an 4 drip. Yi Huanyan frowned and looked at the man lying in the back seat. He had a handsome face, and she could faintly see the pure eyes of the past. The man's sharp edges covered the youthfulness of a teenager and added a bit of toughness. At this moment, the celebrity that was the center of attention was drunk and unconscious in this narrow space. "You looked for me because of this?" He was drunk and kept calling your name. "I couldn't do anything about it. I also wanted to explain to you what happened in the afternoon. Brother Hua didn't know about the reporters. It was all my fault. I didn't think it through. He really just wanted to treat you to a meal. He was also afraid that you wouldn't come and misunderstand that he had ulterior motives, so he contacted your colleague first." Li Dali's words were like a needle piercing Yi Huanyan's heart. She felt a little sorry for him, but it wasn't unbearable. There were two voices in her heart. One told her to leave, whether it was Sun Yanhua or Lu Shun. They had nothing to do with her. Don't look for trouble. And another voice was telling her that she had the responsibility to guide others, to let go of the guilt they felt toward her. What happened back then, on the surface, she was the one who was hurt the most, but the one who bore the most psychological pressure was Lu Shun. He had broken ties with the Lu family and changed his name. All these years, he had worked his way up to where he was today. From a rich young master, he had become a vagrant singer who swallowed his pride and sang in bars for a few $100s. If it wasn't for her, his life would have been smooth sailing. "Miss Yi, look, I've explained everything. If you still don't believe me, I can call the reporters who followed you this afternoon to confront you. No need." Yi Huanyan's gaze fell on Sun Yanhua's face. "When he wakes up, if he's free, ask him to give me a call. I'll find time to explain to him what he wants to talk about." Li Dali's face lit up. Okay. I'll send you back now." Yi Huanyan was about to refuse when she suddenly remembered the time. The waiting time for the night bus was too long, so she didn't refuse. The journey wasn't long. Yi Huanyan sat beside Sun Yanhua and heard him mumble something. She vaguely heard the two words, yen, and some messy words like stage play. "Yen, wait for me," while tossing and turning. He suddenly held her hand. Yi Huanyan was so shocked that she quickly held his wrist, afraid that the foreneedle would pierce through his blood vessels. Li Dali consciously turned his head away and didn't look at them. The atmosphere in the car was a little tense. Yi Huanyan's brows were tightly knitted. In the end, she didn't pull her hand away. She held his wrist and tidied his messy bangs. His hair was blue, probably for the stage effect. It felt unreal when she touched it. Just like him, his sudden return as a superstar, Sun Yanhua, made her feel unreal. "Lu Shen, do you know that no one in this world should wait for someone in the same place? Moreover, it's been 10 years. 10 years is enough to change the world. 10 years ago, there was a craze in China for going abroad." Lu Shun's mother stood in front of her and said those words. "Lu Shun is destined to study abroad. Be it now or in the future, you'll only be a burden by his side. Can you go abroad? You can't." Yes, she couldn't. 10 years ago, when her father had just passed away, she and Jiang Milan depended on each other. Although they didn't have to worry about food and clothing, most of the family's money was invested in Jiang Milan's business. She couldn't leave the mess at home alone. Although she couldn't help, she could at least stay by her mother's side and comfort her. The night before she found out that Lu Shan was going abroad, she skipped class. Chapter 72. She skipped a day of class and did nothing. She took out all the pocket money she had saved and hugged the pile of change until the sky turned dark. When Jiang Milan came back, she hugged her in her arms. Her heart ached for her. Yen, don't cry. I've thought about you going abroad. I still have some savings, and I know a nice uncle. I'll ask him for help. Everyone in school knew about her relationship with Lu Shen. When the news reached the Lu family, Lu Shen's mother even asked to meet Jiang Milan. Jiang Milan could see the obstacles between the two children at a glance. Yi Huanyan raised her head from Jiang Milan's arms. She looked at her mother with teary eyes. Her mother had obviously become more haggard after working so hard for the past 2 days. She wiped her tears, but her voice was still choked with sobs. Mom, I don't want to go abroad. I just promised Lu Shun to buy him a birthday present. I'm still $10 short. Just give me next month's pocket money in advance. Later on, she would occasionally think that if her father had not passed away, and if her family had always been well off, perhaps she would have gone abroad with Lu Shun. But as she grew older, such thoughts became fewer and fewer. At her current age and experience, looking at the relationship from 10 years ago, she actually somewhat agreed with Lu Shun's mother's point of view. At least at that time, she was not suitable for Lu Shun. When she got out of the car, Yi Huanyan pulled her hand out of Sun Yanhua's and turned to Li Dali. When he wakes up, tell him that we have to look forward. I wasn't in as much pain as he thought back then. Tell him not to feel guilty towards me. Ling Family Villa. Yi Huanyan took off her coat and hung it on the rack at the entrance. She changed into slippers and went straight into the house. She alarmed Ling Ling. She opened the door and came out of her room. She was busy preparing supper for her. Don't bother. I've eaten at the office. You should rest early. It's okay. Young master needs to eat when he comes back. How about this? Miss Yi, you take a shower first. I'll cook first. I'll call you when I'm done. Ling Ling was the only servant left in the house, and Ling Han didn't seem to have any intention of hiring other servants. This made her feel a lot more relaxed. In such a big house, there weren't so many people with ulterior motives, and it actually felt a little warm. An hour later, Ling Han returned home. As soon as he entered the house, he smelled a faint smell of alcohol. He frowned. What's that smell? A cold voice sounded in the living room. Ling Ling had just come out of the kitchen and was wiping her hands on her apron when she heard the noise. She sniffed and was slightly stunned. It's the smell of fermented wine. I made some fermented rice balls for supper tonight. Young master, do you want some? Ling Han nodded. His eyes fell on the gray woolen coat on the hanger at the entrance, and he frowned slightly. Yi Huanyan had just come out of the shower. Her wet hair was draped over her shoulders, and the towel on her shoulders was dripping. When she saw Ling Han, she stopped in her tracks. You're back. Ling Han retracted his gaze from the coat and glanced at her with a frown. If you stand there for a while, the floor will be wet. Who taught her to have such a bad habit of not drying her hair after showering? No wonder colds were common. Yi Huanyan was stunned for a moment. She hurriedly pulled down the towel around her neck and returned to her room while wiping her hair. I'll go dry it. 10 minutes later, Yi Huanyan returned to the dining table with a head of soft hair. Her hair was obviously much smoother after being dried. Without her makeup, she looked younger than usual, and her clear eyes made people feel that she was exceptionally pure. Ling Han lowered his head to eat his supper. In the time it took for him to raise his head to look at her, he saw her holding the spoon and quickly finishing the bowl of fermented glutinous rice balls. No one's fighting with you. You're eating so fast. Do you have something to do tonight? Cough, cough. When she heard him speak, Yi Huanyan hurriedly swallowed the food in her mouth. In a moment of carelessness, she choked again and couldn't stop coughing. Ling Han sneered as if he had expected this. He picked up the glass of water beside him and handed it to her. You eat so fast. It's normal for you to choke. Yi Huanyan was busy drinking water. Her heart was in turmoil. If you hadn't scared me, would I have choked? Yi Huanyan drank water and continued to cough. Ling Han couldn't stand it anymore and patted her back. This gentle gesture made Yi Huanyan feel flattered. Her face stiffened as she put down the glass of water. After a long silence, she couldn't help burping. A hint of surprise flashed across Ling Han's face. He retracted his hand and examined her without saying a word. She felt a little guilty and lowered her head. Actually, burping is very normal. It's just like breathing. If you're alive, you have to breathe or eat. When you're full, you burp. Twisted logic. A hint of contempt flashed across Ling Han's face. He looked like he couldn't be bothered with her. Have you settled the matter with the company's artists? In order to break the awkwardness, Yi Huanyan tried to find a topic to talk about. Ling Han nodded slightly. Yes, it's settled. What did you do? The company sent someone to bail her out and then fire her. Simple and clear. This was Ling Han's style of doing things. Live streaming was a popular way to become famous recently. Pleasure Group was also promoting it. However, the management of the live streaming platform was online management after all. The company couldn't reach that far to determine whether the artist's own behavior was up to standard. Therefore, it was easy for something like this to happen. When the planning department submitted the plan to cultivate the live streaming internet influencer, we already asked them to control the scale of the live streaming platform. However, this incident couldn't be avoided. New artists want to make a name for themselves, and there are always people who want to test the waters. Therefore, we can only make an example out of them. When it came to work, Ling Han's attitude was a little serious. If we fire them directly and compensate them for the breach of contract, won't it affect the enthusiasm of the live streaming artists? It was considered in the meeting. The management of live streaming artists needs to be adjusted. This matter has been sent to the various departments. You probably haven't seen it yet. Wake up early tomorrow morning. You'll go on a business trip with me to the branch office. Business trip? Yi Huanyan stared at him. She just wanted to ease the atmosphere, so she casually mentioned what happened today. Why did she get herself a business trip? No one informed me. Ling Han glanced at her and looked a little impatient. I'm officially informing you now. You'll go on a business trip with me to Shanghai tomorrow. The reorganization of live streaming artists is not that simple. The branch office is just at the beginning stage. You'll be in contact with more management in this area in the future. It's necessary for you to familiarize yourself with their work in advance. Yi Huanyan swallowed. She originally wanted to ask why she had to familiarize herself with the work, but when she met his eyes that didn't allow anyone to refute, she decided to retreat. Forget it. Wasn't it just a business trip? It wasn't a big deal. It wasn't like she hadn't been there before. It was just that going on a business trip with Ling Han, in her impression, was not an easy job. Which time wasn't she tortured to the brink of death at night and still had to work energetically with him during the day? How long had it been? Could it be the calm before the storm? Chapter 73. The next morning, Yi Huanyan set off with Ling Han. Assistant Xiao isn't going? Yi Huanyan stood at the entrance of the garage and watched Lingling put the suitcases into the trunk, but she did not see Qiao Mu. Qiao Mu usually drove when he had to drive on short trips. He has other things to do. Ling Han glanced at her and threw the keys to her. Stop nagging and start driving. I'll drive? Yi Huanyan widened her eyes in disbelief. She got her driver's license in her sophomore year, and she could count the number of times she had driven with both hands. Ling Han actually dared to let her drive? If you're not driving, am I supposed to drive? After saying this, he pulled open the door to the passenger seat and sat in, not giving her a chance to refute. Yi Huanyan always felt that the derogatory title of female driver was tailor-made for people like her. If it were not for the wide roads around Ling Han's villa, she would definitely be in big trouble. The automatic transmission car was somewhat convenient for Yi Huanyan to drive, but the driving knowledge that had long been forgotten could not be picked up in a short time. As soon as she got out of the community and onto the main road, she did not stop the car and ran a red light. She courted death by running parallel to a truck and was almost rolled under the wheels because of the suction. In the passenger seat, Ling Han clearly sucked in a breath of cold air. Yi Huanyan's face was deathly pale. She held the steering wheel and pulled away from the truck before letting out a long sigh. Turn left in front and drive in the middle. How are you going to turn? Can't you see the road sign? Ling Han could not help but remind her. Turn left with the directional lights. How are you going to turn without turning on the lights? After this trip, I'm guessing you'll lose all your points on your driver's license. Holding the steering wheel, Yi Huanyan's forehead was covered in sweat. The more Ling Han reminded her, the more nervous she became. Get on the highway in front. Pull over. Ling Han took a deep breath. He felt that if she continued to drive, it would be a miracle if the two of them could reach Shanghai alive. Stop the car? Yi Huanyan's body stiffened. She didn't know what she had done wrong again. In a panic, she mistook the accelerator for the brake. The car suddenly exerted force and accelerated toward the toll booth. Step on the brakes. Ling Han roared. He jumped up from the front passenger seat and grabbed the steering wheel that had gone out of control. He turned the car around, and the wheels screeched as they rubbed against the ground. They left 4 white marks on the ground as they smashed into the guardrail. At the last moment, Yi Huanyan stepped on the brakes, and the car hit the guardrail. The airbags burst, preventing the two of them from hitting the glass and getting hurt. Yi Huanyan's head was a little dizzy. In a daze, she felt that she was being pressed under someone's body. Her arms were numb from the pressure. She raised her head and met a pair of dark eyes. There was a flash of panic. "Do you want to die?" Ling Han roared at her and pushed her out of his arms. His face was ashen. The traffic police on duty rushed over to ask about the situation. A limited edition Maybach had crashed into the guardrail. The entire front part of the car was in a terrible state. Just as Ling Han said, Yi Huanyan's driving license had all its points deducted as soon as it was put into use. After getting out of the car, the traffic police did some simple questioning. After issuing a ticket, they helped call for a tow truck. I called the 4S shop. They said that the repair will take a month. It's getting late now. We have a meeting in Shanghai at 2 in the afternoon, so we don't have time to go back and get a new car. So, Ling Han stood to the side and looked at his beloved car being ruined. His face suddenly turned cold. "Don't tell me you want me to think of a solution, Secretary? Well, Shanghai is too far away. Taxis don't want to go there. Also, there aren't any taxis here. So I think the fastest way is to take a long-distance bus. We can get there in 2 hours." Ling Han's face slightly darkened. "I asked the police. The nearest bus station is only 10 minutes away. The bus from Lanjiang to Shanghai runs every 20 minutes. It's a continuous bus. It's very fast, so we don't have to wait too long." Seeing Ling Han's gloomy expression, Yi Huanyan's face stiffened. Her voice became softer and softer. "The environment on the bus is actually not that bad. It's just a little cramped. It's not very spacious, and it's not very breathable." 15 minutes later, Yi Huanyan was holding 2 long-distance bus tickets in her hand. She pushed 2 small suitcases and accompanied Ling Han to the gate to wait for the tickets to be checked. There were many people at the bus station, so there were all kinds of smells. Yi Huanyan carefully observed Ling Han's expression. It really felt like the night before the storm. When they got on the bus, some aunties and mothers-in-law were carrying bags of local specialties. They shouted in Lanjiang City's dialect, "Excuse me, Miss excuse me," as they shouted and squeezed in, as if their seats would be taken away. Yi Huanyan was afraid that the vegetables, leaves, bacon, and fruits in the baskets in the aunties' and mothers-in-law's hands would rub against Ling Han's expensive suit. Her whole body tensed up, like a chicken protecting its food. She opened her arms and blocked Ling Han behind her. She swayed like a roly-poly doll in her 12-centimeter high heels. Ling Han was half a head taller than her. He stood behind her awkwardly and smiled at the aunties and mothers-in-law passing by. He then pulled her back and impatiently pushed her to the window seat. "Sit down." "I'll sit outside." Yi Huanyan nervously stared at the endless stream of aunties and mothers-in-law carrying their luggage onto the bus. They bought the tickets late, so the 2 tickets were not next to each other. Only the window seat was theirs, and the other seat was at the back. "Okay, sit down and fasten your seatbelt." Ling Han glanced at her with an indifferent expression. He leaned against the seat and closed his eyes to rest. Before the bus set off, the driver counted the number of people. The last group of 3 girls exclaimed and ran onto the bus. Their small faces were all red. As soon as they got on the bus, they apologized to everyone. "Sorry we were late. The aunties were all good-natured. The three girls looked like university students from the nearby university town. They were all dressed up. One had a ponytail, one had long hair, and the last cool girl had a neat short haircut. She was following behind the two girls with long hair. She was carrying a backpack and two bags in her hands. The girl with long hair sat down in front of Yi Huanyan and the others. The girl with the ponytail went straight to Ling Han's side. She looked down at the tickets in her hand and subconsciously looked back at the short-haired girl. She seemed to be in a dilemma. The short-haired girl was stuffing her backpack into the glove compartment above her head. When she saw this, she frowned and put down her bag. "Sir, are you sitting in the wrong seat?" Ling Han opened his eyes and looked at the two girls in front of him. One had a domineering aura, and the other was gentle and beautiful. Their personalities were so distinct and full of youthfulness. "No. Can we change seats?" Before Yi Huanyan could say anything, Ling Han's voice drowned her out. His tone was matter-of-fact, and there was no trace of politeness at all. Yi Huanyan's heart sank. She looked at the two girls awkwardly. Chapter 74. The short-haired girl was obviously unhappy. When she was about to speak, she was stopped by the ponytail girl. "It's okay. It's okay. Is your seat in the back?" "Yes." Simple conversations often happened on the long-distance bus. Yi Huanyan remembered that when she was in college, she would go to the nearby cities with the girls in the dormitory when she had time. They were all long-distance buses back and forth, just like these three girls. The short-haired girl seemed to be unhappy. She rolled her eyes at Ling Han and helped the ponytail girl put down the luggage. Yi Huanyan heard her murmur, "It's fine if you can't walk when you see a good-looking man, but now you're even interested in an old man, old men." Yi Huanyan felt that her saliva was suddenly choked in her throat. She wanted to laugh, but didn't dare to. Ling Han glanced at her. His eyes were very unkind. Yi Huanyan finally couldn't hold it in anymore and burst out laughing, causing the two girls to look at her several times with embarrassed expressions. The ponytailed girl glared at the short-haired girl. When she looked at Yi Huanyan, her face was red. The driver counted the number of people and was ready to start the bus. The bus slowly started to move. Yi Huanyan thought of a name, Old Man, and couldn't stop laughing. Ling Han was 7 years older than her, and he was 32 years old now. Although he was not in his teenage years, he was still in the golden age of a man. However, in the eyes of these young ladies, he was already an old man. "Is it very funny?" Ling Han tilted his head to look at her, his expression cold. "It's not very funny." Yi Huanyan pursed her lips and tried not to think about the change in his face when he heard the three words, "old man." The skill of making a black face at that moment was really not something that ordinary people could do. Looking at how she wanted to laugh, but didn't dare to, and how she was trying her best to hold it in, Ling Han felt an inexplicable sense of anger in his heart. "Old man? Am I old?" Along the way, the highway was not considered bumpy, but it was not as comfortable as his own car. Ling Han frowned all the way. Not long after he started driving, he felt a pressure on his shoulder. He lowered his head and saw that the top of his head was leaning on his shoulder. He looked like he had fallen asleep. She could sleep like this after driving for less than 10 minutes. No wonder she would always lose things when she went out to play when she was in university. It wouldn't be strange if she lost people like this. Even though he was thinking about this, his body did not move. He maintained the same posture all the way to Shanghai. When the long-distance bus passed through the highway security checkpoint, he stepped on the brakes too hard and the bus shook violently. All the people in the bus who were dozing off were startled awake. Yi Huanyan was no exception. She suddenly rushed forward and her forehead bumped into a warm body. She was shocked and looked up to see Ling Han's palm. When he stepped on the brakes, he was quick to reach out and hold Yi Huanyan's forehead first to prevent her head from hitting the seat in front of her. When Yi Huanyan woke up, she realized that her entire upper body was leaning on Ling Han's chest. She looked up and saw his chin. "We're not there yet." She heard an indifferent voice from the top of her head. She was slightly stunned and nodded with a red face. She carefully moved back to her seat in his arms and did not dare to look into his eyes. Later, they entered the highway around Shanghai. Although it was a highway, it was so congested that everyone in the bus started to get impatient. The overpass that was more than 100 meters long was filled with cars. There was no end in sight. The bus moved slowly, and every time it moved, it would shake violently. Even someone like Yi Huanyan, who never got carsick like this, felt suffocated. She heard a panting sound beside her. It sounded like someone had been holding back for a long time. She jerked her head around and saw Ling Han's pale face. "You're carsick," she exclaimed. "Why are you so noisy?" Ling Han rolled his eyes at her weakly. "Be quiet." Her heart sank when she heard his weak voice. Moreover, when she saw Ling Han close his eyes and not move after he said that, she panicked. She hurriedly opened her bag and started to rummage through it. As she searched, she tried to talk to Ling Han. "I remember that I brought motion sickness pills. Let me look for them." Usually, Yi Huanyan was very good at taking care of Ling Han's daily chores in the office. However, she had always put her own things everywhere. There were all kinds of things in such a big bag, just like a treasure chest. However, there were too many things. She couldn't find the small box of motion sickness medicine even after turning it over. "Are you carsick?" A soft female voice came from behind her. Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. She turned around and looked in the direction of the voice. The girl with a ponytail seemed a little shy. She handed over a white wet napkin in her hand and spoke in a very soft voice. "If you don't mind, you can try this. Stick it on your temple. It will quickly stop you from feeling dizzy." Yi Huanyan was stunned. She took it and said politely, "Thank you." "Then thank you. It's okay. It was originally meant for Box, but I didn't use it." The girl with the ponytail explained with a smile. When she mentioned Box, she was slightly stunned. "Oh right, Box is the one sitting in front of your boyfriend." The word boyfriend made Yi Huanyan blush. She subconsciously glanced at Ling Han. He looked indifferent. Box, whose name was inexplicably called, turned around and leaned on the seat with a look of contempt. "When I came here, I said that I don't get carsick. It's more like you guys can use it yourself." After saying this, she looked at Ling Han meaningfully. "Xiaowei, you're unlucky this time. Prepare more in the future. Maybe you can find a single uncle home." Box, you." The two girls talked back and forth. The girl with the long hair also turned around and said a few words. From the conversation, Yi Huanyan found out that the three of them were indeed studying in Lanjiang City University. It was not winter vacation yet, but the three of them had agreed to go to Shanghai to play. Yi Huanyan tore open the package of the anti-fainting medicine in her hand. There were 2 pieces of plaster that were not much bigger than a thumbnail. Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. "Why does it look like this?" The girl with the ponytail, called Xiaowei's, eyes lit up. She whispered, "This is it. Just stick the side of the plaster on your temples and tear open the membrane." Yi Huanyan imagined the appearance of Ling Han with dogskin plasters on his temples and couldn't help but laugh. She pressed one on each side of his temples. The medicine took effect very quickly. A cool feeling began to spread from his temples. Ling Han suddenly quivered and opened his eyes. There were 4 pairs of eyes staring at him, rolling around. He frowned and raised his hand to touch his face. "Don't move. It's anti-fainting medicine." Yi Huanyan anxiously held his hand. TSK. The 3 onlookers looked at each other with ambiguous expressions. Ling Han glanced at Yi Huanyan indifferently and explained, "My hair is covering my eyes. I'm going to move it away. Since that's the case, why don't you do it?" The 3 girls consciously turned their heads and sat in their seats. They looked like they wouldn't look, but it made the atmosphere between the 2 of them even more ambiguous. Chapter 75. Yi Huanyan's face froze as she hurriedly let go of his hand. However, he didn't continue what he was doing. He placed his hands on his knees and waited for her to make a move. Yi Huanyan pursed her lips. She had no choice but to move closer to him. Then she raised her hand and brushed the loose strands of hair on his forehead to the side. Due to motion sickness, his forehead was drenched in sweat. His originally meticulous hairstyle was now a little messy and covered his eyes slightly. The car suddenly jolted violently. She cried out in surprise. She lost her balance and fell onto Ling Han's chest. A large hand held her firmly by her waist. Her face burned as she tried to get up. However, the car was a little bumpy as it entered the station, so she couldn't break free. Instead, she grabbed onto the collar of his suit jacket. As the car rocked, her entire face was pressed against his bouncy chest. She kept sliding up and down as her face burned fiercely. Suddenly, she heard a muffled groan from above her head. At the same time, her entire body froze as she felt something strange. When she got out of the car, she ran as fast as she could. Using her nimble body, she stepped over Ling Han's legs and got out of the back door. She pulled her 2 suitcases and ran far away towards the exit, leaving Ling Han alone far behind. The 3 girls talked and laughed as they got out of the car. After the short-haired girl got out of the car, she stood next to Ling Han and asked suspiciously, "Why did your girlfriend leave you behind?" Ling Han's lips curved into a playful smile. She sat for too long. Maybe she wasn't feeling well. The estimated 2-hour car ride was delayed by an hour because of the traffic jam in Shanghai. After they arrived at the hotel, Yi Huanyan asked as she flipped through the hotel room menu, "President Ling, it's 12 now. Should we inform them to postpone the meeting at 2 in the afternoon?" Ling Han leaned against the sofa with the outline of the afternoon meeting in his hands. His eyes revealed his fatigue as he said flatly, "No need. We'll hold it on time." Yi Huanyan hesitated for a moment, but when she saw his serious expression, she swallowed the words in her heart. "Yes, I understand. It will take about half an hour for the hotel to prepare lunch. You can take a shower and rest for a while." The person on the sofa nodded, but did not move. After lunch, Yi Huanyan contacted the people at the Shanghai branch office in advance and accompanied Ling Han for a meeting in the afternoon. During the meeting, Yi Huanyan clearly felt that Ling Han did not look too good. She was sitting closest to him and could clearly see the fine beads of sweat on his forehead. The meeting lasted until the evening. Halfway through, they ordered a dinner. When they were putting away the lunchboxes, Yi Huanyan found that Ling Han's portion was barely touched. Xiao Wang, the assistant director of UXIN Media, the branch company in Shanghai, asked Yi Huanyan carefully as she helped to take out the packed lunchboxes. "Secretary Yi, is it because the food you ordered is not to President Ling's liking? I don't think President Ling has eaten it all." Seeing Xiao Wang's cautious look, Secretary Yi shook her head. "President Ling is not particular about such things when he is working. You don't have to be too stressed. The food is pretty good." Happy Heart Media used to be an online media company. When it was on the verge of bankruptcy due to lack of funds, it was acquired by Ling Han. At that time, Ling Dongming didn't think highly of online media operations and firmly opposed the acquisition. It was Ling Han who defended it and even used the funds that his mother left him. In the end, he bought it in his own name. After the online platform gradually improved, Ling Dongming formally proposed the acquisition to the board of directors of Huanyu Group. The current management of UXIN Media had experienced the company's bankruptcy and acquisition in the past, so they feared and admired Ling Han. Before he came, it was obvious that he had warned his subordinates not to make any mistakes. It was no wonder that Xiao Wang was so concerned. After comforting Xiao Wang, Yi Huanyan looked at the lunchboxes in the trash can with some worry in her heart. When the meeting ended, it was already 9:00 p.m. When the meeting was over, the senior management of UXIN Media looked tired. Someone suggested that it was so late, so they should go out and relax. Everyone had different expressions on their faces as they carefully observed Ling Han's expression. Yi Huanyan frowned and also looked at Ling Han. Shanghai's night scene was well known far and wide. The reason for such a bustling night scene was naturally Shengxiao's alluring nightlife. In the bar's private room, a few hot girls were twisting their bodies in front of the LED screen and holding the microphone as they sang. Their voices were charming and their eyes were blurred. Yi Huanyan could not sit still. She had always hated such occasions, but as his secretary, she had to come since Ling Han was here. President Ling, are you satisfied? This is the most stylish bar in Shanghai. All the girls here are proficient in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. No matter what you want to talk about, they can talk freely. The person who spoke was the department manager closest to Ling Han. He was slightly plump and not very tall. Yi Huanyan stood in front of him in her high heels, so they were almost at eye level. At this moment, he was probably drinking happily, so his face was flushed and he spoke to Ling Han casually. Ling Han glanced at him with disdain in his eyes. That's it. The manager was slightly stunned and hesitated. President Ling, do you have any other requests? Ling Han held the wine glass in his hand and looked at Yi Huanyan beside him. He said lightly, "What do you think of Secretary Yi?" Yi Huanyan's body stiffened and her face turned slightly pale. Normal people didn't like to be judged by others, especially when it was asked by someone they liked. The department manager wiped his sweat. He did not dare to offend Ling Han, so naturally, he did not dare to offend the secretary beside him. Everyone knew that Secretary Yi had the final say in the headquarters and was second only to one person. Secretary Yi is naturally a top-notch beauty. She has the qualifications and the figure. How do these girls you recruited compare to Secretary Yi? Ling Han's words were getting more and more outrageous. Yi Huanyan stared at him in disbelief, but only saw that his eyes were blurred and he looked like he was drunk. He shook the wine glass in his hand and the ice cubes made a pleasant sound. If you want to talk about being in a favorable position, I only have Secretary Yi by my side. She doesn't know how to enjoy herself as well as you. When he said this, he had a smile that was not a smile. It was as if he was teasing her, as if it was just a code word used to curry favor in the drinking field. The department manager was stunned at first, but then the corners of his mouth curled up into an ambiguous arc. Under Yi Huanyan's puzzled gaze, he waved his hand and called a girl who was singing on the stage over. He whispered something into her ear, and that girl pinched his shoulder unhappily and walked out of the private room unwillingly. Not long after, the private room door opened and 7 or 8 girls filed in. Some had hot figures, some had innocent looks, some had big breasts, and some had smooth skin. All kinds of beauties gathered in one place. Yi Huanyan's expression froze. If she remembered correctly, these girls were popular female streamers on UXIN Media's live broadcast platform. Chapter 76. One by one, beautiful women stood on the stage like goods for people to pick and choose. They put on all kinds of different expressions. Some were shy, some were charming, some were bold and hot, and some were shy and pure. The managers in the room, who came with them, were mesmerized. Even from a distance, Yi Huanyan could hear the sound of the men swallowing their saliva. Even Yi Huanyan's eyes were fixed on the pure and lovely face of the famous streamer in the middle. If she remembered correctly, the one in the middle was Yin Guogua, the beauty streamer who was quickly becoming popular on the live broadcast platform. She had entered the public sight with her pure and lovely baby face and hot figure. President Ling, what do you think of these? They are the most popular female anchors on our platform this year. Ling Han didn't say anything. His shoulder was very close to Yi Huanyan, and the pressure from his shoulder made Yi Huanyan slightly stunned. He turned his head and saw from his face that his eyes were slightly narrowed, and he was looking at the beauties on the stage with a trace of unkind light. The department manager didn't realize the danger at all and waved his hand. Come, Guogua, come here. The female anchor in the hot short skirt stepped down from the stage with small steps, and there was a harmless smile on her pure face. For a moment, Yi Huanyan even thought that when God created humans, he used a random method for Yin Guogua. That pure face shouldn't grow on such a hot body. Yin Guogua obediently walked to Ling Han's side and glanced at the department manager. She knowingly picked up the wine glass beside her and knelt down in front of Ling Han in front of everyone. She was like a maid from the Middle Ages, groveling and groveling. President Ling, Guogua salutes you. Yi Huanyan couldn't sit still anymore. He suddenly stood up from a sofa and stared at the female anchor kneeling on the ground with a shocked expression. What are you doing? Secretary Yi, sit down. Ling Han's voice sounded from beside him, with a majesty that couldn't be refused. Yi Huanyan frowned as she looked at him. No matter how hard she tried, she still couldn't figure out what he was up to. She just stood there in a daze. I heard that you're the one who's gaining the most popularity recently? Ling Han ignored her. He got up slightly and lowered his head toward Yin Guogua. He took the cup with one hand and pinched her chin with the other. It was as if he was admiring an object. His gaze was very naked. Yin Guogua was obviously well trained. Under such circumstances, she still maintained a smile and said in a soft and coquettish voice, "It's all thanks to the company's good training." Oh, did the company nurture him well? Ling Han raised his head and glanced at the department manager. You guys have fun. I'm taking this guy. Under Yi Huanyan's shocked gaze, Ling Han stood up and said those words, then suddenly suggested leaving. The department manager was overjoyed. He rubbed his hands and hurriedly said, Okay. We won't delay President Ling's business. Guogua, take good care of President Ling. Do you hear me? Yin Guogua obviously didn't expect to be chosen by the big boss so easily. A trace of astonishment appeared on her innocent face. She was stunned for a moment before she reacted. She hurriedly nodded and stood up with the help of the coffee table. After leaving the private room, the group left through the back door under the guidance of the waiter. Yi Huanyan glanced at the female anchor, following behind Ling Han from the corner of her eyes. She caught a glimpse of a pair of perky buttocks swaying left and right. Her face immediately darkened. There were countless women by Ling Han's side these past few years. She thought she was already used to it. It wasn't the first time such a scene had happened. Perhaps it was because Ling Han's pitiful little concern for her during this period of time made her lose her sense of propriety. She actually forgot the pain and the things that happened in the past after the scar healed. Not to mention that he had Sheng Anren by his side. She couldn't even count the number of women who came and went. Now that she had lost her status as his bed partner, she actually thought that Ling Han would be pure without her. Her chest suddenly felt stuffy. Get in the car. A cold voice interrupted her thoughts. She raised her head, and her expression froze. Ling Han and Yin Guogua had already gotten the car and were sitting side by side in the back seat. Only the front passenger seat was left for her. The driver was Chow Mu. Ling Han and his new love, plus her, his former bed partner, who couldn't even be considered an old love? Wasn't it too strange? I'm not getting up. I'll take a taxi back to the hotel. Yi Huanyan took a step back. That's fine. After the cold voice, only the smell of car exhaust was left on the small road behind the bar. Was she that impatient? The car drove out of the bar street, passed through the downtown area, and then drove into the gradually empty street. There were 3 people sitting in the car, but Yin Guogua felt an inexplicable coldness. Stop the car in front. Ling Han's sudden words made her look up in surprise. However, she discovered that his gaze had been looking out the window and had no intention of landing on her at all. Even without the support of the enormous financial group behind him, his well-defined features and deep-set eyes were still the object of countless women's competition. Yin Guogua secretly swallowed her saliva. For the first time, she felt that tonight's work was not only worth it, but also a sure win. If she could curry favor with this master, wouldn't she be able to eat and drink in the future? Director Ling, it's not easy to get a taxi here. Are you sure you want to stop here? How about I send you to the hotel first? No need. Ling Han's attitude did not allow for refusal. Xiaomu could only pull over and pull the car door open. Ling Han got out of the car alone. In Guogua looked out the window. There was an open park nearby, and her heart suddenly tightened. She inexplicably blushed. Field play? Rich people all liked to play a little more exciting. It was not that she had not tried it before, but when she thought about having a night of passion with a man who was like her dream lover, an inexplicable desire arose in her heart. Missing, you don't need to get out of the car. Xiao Mu held the car door and stopped her. Huh? She was slightly taken aback. Director Ling. Xiao Mu looked back at Ling Han. Ling Han brushed the non-existent dust off his arm. He did not look back, but his cold voice was exceptionally austere in the dark night. Go ahead. Ask clearly and settle the matter. There are some people I don't want to see starting tomorrow. Xiao Mu acknowledged and closed the car door. In Guogua watched as the man of her dreams rapidly retreated behind the car window. The field play of her dreams flew away before her eyes, leaving only an assistant in the car. She started to panic. You stop the car. Where are you taking me? Miss Een, you don't need to panic. I'm just taking you to a quiet place to sit. There are some things that our director Ling needs me to ask you clearly. Why doesn't he ask me himself? In Guogua was a bit angry, so her tone was a bit displeased. Because contempt flashed through Xiao Mu's eyes. Director Ling is obsessed with cleanliness. In the rearview mirror, the pure face in the back seat was gradually contorting. The so-called purity was merely a facade. Chapter 77. Yi Huanyan walked along the street for a long time. Only when the cold wind penetrated her coat and chilled her skin did she realize that she hadn't called a taxi yet. In the night, she laughed self-deprecatingly. This place was at least 5 kilometers away from the hotel. Was she planning to walk back? Yi Huanyan? Just as she called a taxi, a familiar ringtone sounded. It was a certain someone's ringtone. She was stunned and hurriedly looked for her phone in her bag. Hello. The voice on the other end of the phone was a little heavy, and the heavy breathing sounded like the sign of a cold. I've sent you the address. Call a taxi to pick me up. Yi Huanyan was stunned. Pick you up? Shouldn't he be spending the night with his new lover in a hotel? Why did he want her to pick him up? Yes, wait at the entrance of the park when you arrive. The park? Before she could ask in detail, the call was cut off. An intense scene flashed through her mind, and a sense of shame rushed to her head. She felt as if her blood and qi were surging. Was he crazy? He wanted her to pick him up after doing that kind of thing in that kind of place? Miss, where are you going? I'm not going to pick you up if you don't tell me. The driver urged impatiently. Oh, wait, let me see. Yi Huanyan hurriedly looked at the text message. Sir, Central Park Southgate. Going to Central Park so late at night. The driver looked at her strangely in the rearview mirror. Yi Huanyan wished she could find a hole and hide in it. She was innocent, but Ling Han made her a scapegoat for no reason. Judging from the look in the driver's eyes, he probably thought she was an indecent person. 10 minutes later, at the south gate of Central Park, Yi Huanyan wrapped her coat tightly around herself and got out of the car. In the cold wind, she looked around cautiously with anger and grievance. It was dark and windy. Except for a light at the entrance of the park, there was no light. The south gate was close to the Hu River, and the night wind was blowing. The place that Ling Han had chosen was really a good place for a field battle. When Yi Huanyan thought about what they might do, her nose turned sour and her eyes started to burn. She estimated that she still had to wait for a while. She stood at the south gate and stomped her feet in the cold wind. However, she could still rationally calculate the time Ling Han would need to complete his task. The more she thought about it, the more uncomfortable she felt. She kicked a few pebbles near her feet and rolled far away. You're here, but you're not looking for anyone. Instead, you're playing with rocks? In the night, A familiar figure walked out from the riverside. His short black hair was messed up by the wind, but it did not affect his handsome facial features. Yi Huanyan froze. "You're done? You. What end?" Ling Han frowned and looked at her, somewhat puzzled. "Where's In Guogua?" Hearing this, Ling Han slightly reacted. His expression slightly changed, and a trace of ridicule flashed in his eyes. "Dressing by the river. Do you want to go and see?" Yi Huanyan's face suddenly turned pale, and her lips couldn't help but tremble. "You really..." Before she could finish speaking, she suddenly turned around. Her shoulders trembled slightly, and it was obvious that she was crying. The ridicule on Ling Han's face instantly froze. He was stunned. Looking at the back of the figure, he suddenly felt like a fish bone was stuck in his throat, and he shouted hoarsely, "Hey!" The thin figure twitched a little violently. The woman's lotus-pink woolen clothes looked inexplicably gentle and pitiful under the only street light at the south gate. "Don't worry about me. Anyway, it's not your first time with those women. I'll be fine in a while." Although she said that, she couldn't stop crying. A trace of regret flashed in Ling Han's eyes. He couldn't help but reach out and pull her into his arms from behind. He rested his chin on the top of her head and sighed helplessly. "Why do you believe everything that others say?" The crying in his arms stopped abruptly, leaving only the twitching that hadn't stopped in time. She touched his chin and felt a little uncomfortable. Yi Huanyan looked up in surprise. "What did you say? What month is it? Why is the wind so strong by the river? Do you think you can have a passionate night here? What are you thinking? Aren't you afraid of the cold?" Yi Huanyan was slightly taken aback. After thinking carefully, it didn't seem very possible. Moreover, she still hadn't seen In Guogua. When she came back to her senses, she suddenly found herself in Ling Han's arms. He was hugging her from behind. Although she couldn't see his face, she could feel his heartbeat from behind and hear his even breathing from the top of her head. Her body stiffened sluggishly. Ling Han clearly also felt her stiffening, so he let go of her. He coughed dryly and walked toward the river without looking back. "Let's go. It's not far from the hotel." The hotel they were staying at was by the river. It wasn't far from the river. She stood in place for a while. When she saw his back gradually disappear into the night, she hurriedly followed him. "What about In Guogua?" "I instructed Xiao Mu to ask her something, so she was taken away." "Then tonight's events were all part of your plan?" "There wasn't any plan. These people at Happy Heart Media think they're veterans of the company and are used to flaunting their seniority. They didn't plan to hide these things from anyone. I just wanted them to lower their guard and have one last night of revelry." "Oh, I thought. What did you think?" Ling Han looked at her teasingly. "It's just a show. You're not jealous, are you?" The night was dark, but Yi Huanyan felt like she saw a long-lost craftiness in Ling Han's eyes, just like when he succeeded in teasing her many years ago. She blushed and muttered aggrievedly, "Jealous? What right do I have to be jealous?" Ling Han was slightly taken aback, and his eyes gradually dimmed. "And then? What are you going to do?" Yi Huanyan sensed that the atmosphere was off and tried to pull the topic back to the original track. "And then tomorrow." Ling Han suddenly paused and stood stiffly in place while covering his mouth. Yi Huanyan also stopped. "Ah! Chio!" A loud sneeze exploded in the air. Yi Huanyan was stunned. You caught a cold." "It's nothing." The embarrassment on Ling Han's face was drowned in the darkness of the night. He nonchalantly took out a handkerchief from his pocket and wiped his nose. Then he casually threw the expensive Burberry handkerchief into the trash can by the river. Yi Huanyan was slightly speechless when she saw this. After returning to the hotel suite, everyone returned to their own rooms. Yi Huanyan came out of the shower to pour some hot water and found that the light in Ling Han's room was still on, so she also poured a cup of hot water and knocked on the door. Just as he knocked on the door opened by itself a sliver, and light came through. The door wasn't closed. She was slightly taken aback. "Ling Han, No one responded. In the room, the chandelier was on, and the heater was on, so it was a little stuffy. Ling Han was lying on the bed, with his eyes closed. His brows were slightly furrowed, and he seemed to be having a nightmare. His forehead was covered in sweat. As soon as Yi Huanyan entered the room, she felt that the temperature was not right. There was no need to turn on such a high temperature when sleeping. It was almost like a sauna. Ling Han? She tried to call out his name a few times, but the person on the bed did not respond at all. She felt a rush in her feet. She felt a burning sensation in her palm, and she quickly retracted her hand from his forehead. Why is it so hot? Chapter 78. She had just retracted her hand, and she could still feel the residual warmth on his forehead. Yi Huanyan thought about how Ling Han had gotten carsick in the car this morning. It had been a bumpy ride, and he had been in a meeting the whole afternoon. He hadn't eaten much for dinner, and he had drunk some wine in the evening. How could he not catch a cold and have a fever when he came back with her in the wind? Ling Han? Ling Han? Can you hear me? At this moment, Yi Huanyan's first reaction was to wake him up and go to the hospital together. The person on the bed didn't react at all, other than frowning even more. Yi Huanyan was a little flustered. She didn't know anything about medical treatment, and she didn't know if the method on the internet was reliable. Thinking of this, it was more reliable to call the hotel's customer service. The hotel had a private doctor. She took Ling Han's temperature and confirmed that he had a fever. The fever was a little high, but it wasn't serious. The fever isn't too high. It's 38.5 degrees. There's no need to go to the hospital. Physical cooling will do. You just have to try rubbing his body to lower his temperature. The doctor was a woman. She didn't know about the relationship between Yi Huanyan and Ling Han. In front of so many people, Yi Huanyan couldn't explain anything, so she could only nod. Yi Huanyan put the hot water beside the bed. She lowered the temperature in the room slightly. Then she lifted the blanket on Ling Han, unbuttoned his shirt, and wiped him bit by bit with a towel. The towel brushed against his chest, and she could clearly feel the elasticity of his skin. Yi Huanyan's face inexplicably felt a little hot. She sat by the bed and looked at a certain someone who was sleeping soundly with his eyes closed. She sighed silently. It seemed that she had never observed him at such a close distance before. His forehead was just right, and his eyebrows were thick. The distance between his eyebrows and his eyes was not large, making his eyes appear deep. When his eyes were open, they were very deep. When his eyes were closed, there was a pair of thick eyelashes. His nose was very tall and straight. He probably inherited it from Uncle Ling. His lips were very thin, but the shape was very nice. He did not look like Uncle Ling. He probably inherited it from his mother. Yi Huanyan had never met Ling Han's mother before, but she had seen her photo. On the bedside of Ling Han's bedroom, there was a photo of him and Wen Qingwan all year round. It was a photo of him when he was young. Wen Qingwan was smiling very gently at the side. She was clearly a very gentle woman. Compared to Wen Qingwan, her mother, Jiang Milan, was a very passionate and unrestrained person. She didn't know what Ling Han's father was thinking at that time. How could there be such a big difference in their tastes? Yi Huanyan's hand held the towel and wiped Ling Han's cheek. At this moment, she suddenly felt very satisfied. With Ling Han by her side, all the unhappiness did not exist. She recalled a lot and also muttered a lot of things in Ling Han's ear. Even though she knew that he was in a daze from the fever and probably couldn't hear, he was sleeping soundly. Like this made her feel very safe. Those things that she wanted to say but did not dare to say usually all came out easily. When I was in my first year of university, I heard that the family relationship showed that two people who were related couldn't get married. At that time, I was very sad. There was even a period of time when I really hoped that my mother would divorce Uncle Ling so that I could marry you. At that time, you always sent snacks to my dormitory. The girls in my dormitory were very envious that I had an older brother. They all thought that you were my biological brother. These things seem to have happened a long time ago. A while ago, when you were especially bad to me, I relied on these things to persevere. I know that I shouldn't have run to Grandma and said that I wanted to marry you without asking for your opinion, but I really don't want to marry someone else. I don't want you to marry someone else either. The long-winded voice gradually disappeared and was replaced by the sound of even breathing. Ling Han slowly opened his eyes and lowered his head to look at the woman who was sleeping on the back of his hand. A trace of pity appeared in his eyes. He carried her to the bed, pulled her into his arms, and covered her with the blanket. The next morning, Yi Huanyan woke up on the bed in Ling Han's bedroom. She got up from the bed, and there was no one beside her. There was a soft sound in the living room. She put on her shoes and carefully opened the door a crack. She saw a familiar figure in the living room. The hotel's room service staff left after setting up breakfast. Ling Han's back was facing her, and he was talking on the phone. Yes, pleading? No need. I don't plan to see them, and I don't plan to hear any nonsense. That Guagua get her an agent. Repackage her according to the standards of a proper artist. After the live broadcast, we'll see how the market is like. No need. Attend the morning meeting as usual. I'll be done in about 15 minutes. Drive downstairs and wait for me. 15 minutes? Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. She lowered her head to look at her pajamas. She couldn't care less about her face. She opened the door and rushed out. Ling Han was still holding the phone in his hand. When he saw Yi Huanyan come out like this, a trace of astonishment flashed in his eyes. However, his tone was still calm. Okay, that's it. After hanging up the phone, Ling Han sized up Yi Huanyan, who was standing behind the sofa. The faint smile in his eyes made Yi Huanyan shiver uncontrollably. I'll definitely be done in 15 minutes. She rubbed the back of her head and then rushed into her bedroom. She did not hear Ling Han's words at all. There's no hurry. Looking at the back view that was like the wind, the corners of Ling Han's mouth curved up. The hotel's breakfast unexpectedly tasted good. You're tuning in to the Echo Reads YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.